Damn, son, where'd you find this? Welcome, everybody. This is the Sunday Show. I'm Jimmy Snow, and I'm joined with Matt Dillahunty. We are here as the premier atheist call-in show in the entire dang world. Welcome. Hi, Matt. How are you? Do I have name tags? I do.
I'm dope. I'm fly. I'm the bee's knees. I'm all those old sayings. I'm actually really sick still, but I managed to suffer through. It was fun because I traveled to do a pre-surgery screening and got back and was getting ready to record the videos that I put together. And I just was immediately sick as all get out. And it's like, oh boy, I caught something. Who knows? You know, is it a cold, a flu? Is it something COVID-y? I've never had COVID. So, and then I basically went to bed for about 18 hours, got up, took some cold medicine, which I should have taken some more right before we got started today. But so I'm going to struggle through. But I got the 4 videos done yesterday, and then we did a special recording for patrons. But I'm here, and I am once again seeking to go beyond Zen mode, if at all possible, because despite feeling like crap from a standpoint of sickness, I feel really good on most other fronts, as long as you don't ask me about the debate.
Yeah. So anyway, before that, patreon.com/calltheline if you want to support. Later today, I will be releasing the newest episode of Live on the Line, which is Matt sort of alluded to. Features him. Live on the Line is our patron first podcast. Working on, I thought I had figured out a very simple way to get it to sync to YouTube. Channel members get it on a delay. Probably it's going to be at least a couple of weeks, as well as free patrons and the $3 patrons. They get it on a 2-week delay right over on Patreon. But if you want to hear it sooner than later, that podcast episode will be tomorrow tonight, and we will also be resuming the Patreon Zooms soon. A lot of stuff, as I have been gone on medical leave, has been harder to put together, but that's going to be resuming soon, and we'll do some extra ones in July to make up for the one missed in June, and I don't remember if we did one in May, but we'll do extra ones to cover that too if we did. You should call us if you believe in God and can tell us why. You should call us. They are not VR glasses. These are just regular. Well, they're not regular glasses either, but somebody's saying I'm wearing VR glasses. Not today. You should call. I should have shown up in my VR avatar. I know how to do that now. Maybe I'll do that one day. Call us if you believe in God, ghosts, anything supernatural, anything that a skeptic like ourselves may have not yet seen the right reasons to believe. And if you have them, we want to hear them. Give us a call. The number is on the screen, 720-619-2288. There's also a web link in the description if you want to call via the web browser. We would love to hear from you, and we would love to hear the right reasons to believe in God, ghosts, supernatural occurrences, whatever. Matt.
Can I advertise?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, since I almost never do this. First of all, yes, you can go to patreon.com/calltheline and support us there. You can also like and subscribe here. You can go to linemerch.com. But for my personal Patreon, patreon.com/atheistdebates, everything gets uploaded to YouTube for everyone for free, but patrons do get it early. So patrons got 4 videos from me yesterday. One is called God's Surprise, No Free Will. Another one is called Professional Debater Reviews Biden-Trump 2024 Debate 1. Another one is called What's Wrong with Louisiana and Oklahoma. And the fourth one is Stupidest Argument Against Atheism Ever. And let me tell you, I had way more fun doing that video than I thought I did. I thought I was going to absolutely hate doing that video. But I set a fifth video live. That's the final video from the month of June public releases, which is called What Men Want. And so, yeah, there's lots of opportunities there to hear me both with and without a cold.
Excellent. I think people probably tuning in are hoping that we will talk about the debate, which you said not to bring up. And here I am, a rebel as always.
Oh, no. I just said I was in a good mood until you asked me about the debate.
Got it. Do you want to give your thoughts first? Should I give mine first? I'm fine either way.
Most of my thoughts, I released, it's out for patrons right now. It's a full 30-minute video where, without playing the debate, I run through it and I talk about what went right, what went wrong. And I can look at my notes for it. Because I really need to get that fixed. The good news for Biden is that he showed up telling the truth and spewing facts. And one thing I think it's important for people to remember is that he's over 80 years old and he had a cold. Now, I have a cold and I have for more than 24 hours now. I probably am not going to be at peak performance today. I definitely wasn't on Friday. And so you have to take that into consideration. But also, this debate was 90 minutes with no notes, no assistance, and for an octogenarian to sit there and be able to regurgitate facts accurately tells me a lot about what he can do once you get notes and people helping. He's got a good understanding of stuff. And yes, he slipped on occasion and other stuff. I'm not using the cold in any way as an excuse. It was a bad debate for Biden. It was a bad debate for Biden on the merits. And this is what I said in the video. If you took the text of the debate and didn't watch it and just read through the text of the debate, Biden wins hands down on the merits and everything else. But that's not what debates are. Without spoiling everything in my video, I talk about how debates are theater. If it was just about who has the best facts, you would just submit the facts. But this wasn't a debate. There wasn't a back and forth. There wasn't any fact checking. There was barely any chance to call each other out. The closest thing we had to a back and forth was them arguing about their fucking golf game. That's the closest there was to a back and forth. There was not a debate there. It was a joint press conference. And, as I said in my video, I think the biggest failing, a missed opportunity for Biden was when Trump started talking about his golf game. Biden, instead of talking about how he reduced his handicap from 8 to 6 while he was vice president, should have just said, I'm the president of the United States and I'm working to become president of the United States for a second term. My golf game is utterly irrelevant to that job. And I would be very happy if folks elected me again this November and sent this walking constitutional crisis off to continue cheating and bragging about his golf game while the rest of us focus on the work needed to preserve democracy and build a better world. That's the thing that Biden should have said. And I want to see more of that in the September debate. Facts are not going to do it, because his supporters don't care about facts, and Trump is just going to lie, which he did, and accuse you of lying, which he did. So the September debate, from my perspective, needs to be, we've already had a debate where I presented facts, and the facts checkers have reviewed that. I'm the one telling the truth. He's the one lying. Let me set all of that aside, and let's talk about what my vision is for America versus what his vision is for America. And don't let him get away with not answering the question. And then that should be the start in September. There's a lot more in my video, but it's 30 minutes long.
Yeah, I'm probably a little less charitable in this case, because even if it is that he had a cold last night, the day of showed vulnerability, and if it's vulnerability to a cold, of course we're all vulnerable to colds. When I get a cold, I get laid up in bed, but I'm not running for president. And it was like watching a person on the edge of death, and I understand why that made a lot of people really, really uncomfortable. Now, the next day he gives a speech, and it's kind of like, where's this guy? Did they give him the cortisone shot today instead of last night? Because something could have been done. It was a very short order that he seemed to turn around. But there's a slight bias. At the night of, I was feeling terrible about it and thinking he should definitely drop and they should replace him before August. Because if the next debate's not until September, we only have till August to even have the potential to do anything like that. If we hit August, it's definitely locked in. Unless he dies, he'll be the nominee. Then by the next day...
Even if he dies, he'll be the nominee.
Is that true? The DNC doesn't...
Once the DNC's done the nomination, if he dies before the election, I think he remains the nominee because they can't change the ballot.
Okay. I recalled reading something about how it would work, but I don't know it well enough to say it as a rebuttal or anything to what you just said. So I'm just going to presume that that's correct.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's all good. But whatever would happen, presumably the best case would happen before the thing in August. Now, the day after, seeing things get better and seeing things, I came up with strategies in my head of what they should do if he's going to stay in, that I don't think they're going to do anyway, and an acknowledgement that he doesn't feel any less like he's capable of being the nominee than when he decided to run last year for re-election. And that does seem to be pretty clear. He doesn't show signs. A lot of people like to throw Alzheimer's and dementia out there. That's because these people are stupid and don't know what those conditions are. Slowing down as you age is not automatically Alzheimer's. Slowing down as you age is not actually dementia. If you actually listen to experts in the neuro field, of the two candidates, the one who actually shows troubling cognitive habits is not actually Biden. That said,
I would love to take all these people. I'm sorry, you're still going. I'm
almost done.
Go ahead.
If you had asked me Monday if he should drop and a new ticket should go in, I would have absolutely said yes. So in reality, the difference in my position only felt stronger and more worried after Thursday night, but the position itself hadn't changed much. I do think they now have a treasure trove of things that they are going to use in attack ads. And at the end of the day, I'm going to sit back in all of these swing states and go, I really hope women, and especially black women, save us like they did last time, because when it comes down to the people who right now their votes are up for grabs, the people who might be changed by Thursday, it's not necessarily useful to admit this out loud, but they're not the brightest bulbs. They're people who can't decide between these two when there's such a stark contrast. That's a bit ridiculous, but we have a lot of ballots that are going to have heavy implications on abortion. Florida did the one thing that could have potentially turned them back into a swing state. They have an abortion. They have abortion on their ballot in November, and I'm hoping that basically all of the stupid policies and ideas and things that have come out from a system that heavily favors white men is challenged, and ultimately we are saved by women, and especially black women in this election. It's going to give us Georgia again, like happened last time. Turn over Florida. That's my
right now. Right now, the latest polls still have Biden winning the popular vote, but losing the electoral vote.
Yeah.
In the ones that I've seen so far, I will say, and by the way, for anybody who's nervous or talking about Biden, I've seen people in chat saying, "Ooh, do you think it was, sundowning or dementia?" No, there's zero reason to think that, and here's why. I still want somebody to do a fact check video where you just do an edit of the video with every single factual claim made by each of them, and then put a green check mark or a red X next to every single factual claim, because you'll find that Trump didn't make very many factual claims, and the ones that he did were lies or wrong. And Biden made a number of factual statements, and they were generally accurate. But I would challenge anybody, make a list of every fact and figure that Biden put out during that debate. This percent to this percent to this, here's this. Put out every fact and figure in a list, and go take 2 days and memorize all of those facts, and then come back live with no notes and have someone ask you questions about those things in an order that you're not necessarily prepared for. That is what you saw. And I sincerely doubt, I would bet that Biden, even at, 82? Even at 82 in that debate, would outperform 80 to 90% of the people who are trying to trash talking about that. Remembering facts and figures and being able to convey them in context. Did he lose his place when he was talking? You bet. And I think it was partially he's tired, he's overprepared, and he's fucking old.
Yeah.
I lose my place all the time. I mean, granted, I'm still a badass who does most of his videos in one take because that's just the way I work. That's a good thing. I live in the live. He doesn't. And when it comes to which of the two of them I would trust with facts and figures and good information, faltering in a debate is no more impressive to me than being affable in a debate. And I would say that the muted microphones sincerely helped Donald Trump, where he appeared more measured, more affable, more humorous. He was genuinely funny. Like if I didn't know anything about Trump and if I didn't know anything about the facts and figures, I would have looked at that and gone, wow, yeah, I would pick Trump. I mean, that's just the reality. Unfortunately, I know enough to know why that's a really bad idea. Yeah. And there's just so much misinformation out there. I genuinely hope people are paying attention, and we'll be doing a lot more content on this as we get closer.
I also, I genuinely hope people are paying attention. I also hope that there is actually a solid team, that if there's more that we don't know, if last night, so like right now, without going into too much detail, I have health issues and I have good days and bad days. And some days I have good hours and bad hours. And if when reality we're seeing is usually we're seeing him on camera in the good hours, but he's having a lot of bad hours, I hope that there is a team of people there who can say, Joe, come on, man. We barely have time if you pull it out now. But unfortunately, I don't, there's going to be people who come to this like, wow, these two guys just riding for Biden, no matter what, co-partner and all that kind of stuff. I don't particularly like Joe Biden. Most progressive president in my lifetime. I'm a leftist though. But as far as presidents go, best president in our, now I think if you switch the Obama term with the Biden term and Obama was president now, he would have actually even gone further left than Biden did. I think he was restricted by his time, but that's neither here nor there. These are just the sort of, I have no attachment to this man being the next president, except that I have a huge attachment to Trump not being it.
Yeah, no, I flat out said, and we'll say again, I don't think people can think whatever they want of this. Biden could have literally died during that debate, and I'm still not voting for Trump. I'm not going to vote for a lying, cheat, 34-time felon who single-handedly led to the dismantling of the Supreme Court and Roe and, botched all kinds of stuff. It's just a reality. It's not just an individual that I'm voting for. It's a package of ideas, and which set of ideas are going to lead to the better of a couple of different worlds. But I would, I was happy to see that Gavin Newsom came out and was one of the first people to say that he stands behind Joe Biden. And I think it's because myself and many other people were like, if we were going to, if the DNC were going to pull Biden and put anybody else in at this time, who's your number one pick? And my number one pick for that is Gavin Newsom. That's the individual that I most closely align with, although we're going to disagree. I'm going to disagree with all of them on something, and who I think could, in the short time frame, have the best chance. Yeah. Better than Kamala, better than Bernie or Elizabeth Warren or anybody else that your fantasy pick might be.
Yeah, a lot of people. I even saw Cookies mentioned in there. Gretchen Whitmer does not have a better chance over doing in 4 months. Unfortunately, that is not enough time to get people past just all the sexism that will need to be combated. It's the unfortunate reality of it.
If you pull Biden, you have to replace him with a white guy.
Right. Gretchen Whitmer also isn't identifiable amongst independents and swing voters and the people.
I barely know who she is.
Right. Right. It definitely can't be Harris. However, Harris potentially would. There's at least the other nice thing about Gavin Newsom is, as governor of California, you potentially have a way to spin that where we go, okay, we aren't going to totally fuck you over. You can be VP again, and you can pretend to be excited and basically say, of course, I would be VP to my governor. I would love to. Like, there's at least a spin way that that could work. But anyway, that's I suppose we'll jump on to calls. But so far, 2% of almost 600 of you, which I believe comes out to nearly 30 people. Again, I've been sick. If my math is bad, but I think that is no. That comes out to 6 people. 3 people, 6% of you. 2% of you, 4 people. That was way off. I was off by a 0. My bad. And that's not even correct. 2% of 600 of you would be 12 people. Holy shit. I don't feel well. I usually am good at math. I got it. 12 of you have said that you do believe in God and will call. But if that's true, I think only one of you attempted and you had audio issues, and then there might be another person. So of the 10 remaining of you, please don't be a liar in front of your God, and definitely call in and tell us why you believe in God. Yes, for the record, I said 12 before any of the people in chat did. I want that on the record. I did correct myself quickly.
I got one exception. Les Watts can call in and explain why he was making the comment that he did if he wants to.
All right. Hell yeah. All right, we're going to start with Mark in Minnesota. Mark, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt. How are you, Mark?
Hey, Mark.
Good, I guess. I mean, I guess as far as the debate goes, the only thing I'll say is if you watch the Trump clips isolated from Biden, you see how deranged he is and terrible he is. It's only when you see them in comparison that you get this like Nixon versus JFK.
I don't agree. I agree that to you and I that is the case. However, for most people, Trump actually shifted the Overton window over the last, we'll say 10 years in reality. And to you and I, it seems starkly obvious because our perspectives on the bullshit test have not changed much. However, for most people, to just what they now consider normal in a political season, it's not going to help us. To the people that can be won, motivated, or swung, he had a better night than Biden did, regardless of what you just said. Anyway, go ahead, Mark, with your original.
Yeah, so kind of general question, just like, is there an inverse to the argument from authority fallacy? So like argument from authority, right? Like, this is true because the authority saying it is fallacious. But is there kind of like an inverse to, take some idiot like Alex Jones, right? He's a piece of shit. And I instinctively just want to not believe anything he says, but at the same time, it feels wrong to just outwardly dismiss.
If you dismiss something because of the person saying it, that's just an ad hominem dismissal. Possibly,
it's the genetic fallacy.
It could be genetic fallacy, but
yeah. Also, I don't know that I fully agree with your summary of the argument from authority. An argument from authority, yes, would be like, that's right because so-and-so believes that and they're a blank, like a pharmacist or whatever. However, there are people who will point to when you talk about consensus, and yes, you should know more than just the consensus of the relevant group of authority, but it's not in poor form when you are arguing with somebody about, for example, evolution, that the consensus, the scientific consensus overwhelmingly is this. Now, again, you should know more than that, but I wouldn't, that's when a lot of people will yell argument from authority, and I think they are fallacious in their attempt. I was going to say they're committing the fallacy, but that's actually not the fallacy.
Pointing to scientific consensus isn't saying X is true because a scientist says so, and it's not saying X is true because all scientists say so. It's saying X is considered true by scientists because that's what the data show.
Yeah.
Essentially, the evidence that they're using to come to their conclusion is kind of what's true there. So, okay, yeah, no, I guess that's just kind of it. I mean, I think really the main question I would have, Matt, is I know recently you made some comments about the experience you had talking to Jordan Peterson, another piece of shit, about like his carnivore diet, and I would just say it seems like maybe you have dismissed the concept of just because of him. He may not be doing it appropriately. He could have his own motives, but it just seems like you were somewhat dismissive of just the idea that it could be a reasonable option, and it just kind of reminded me of my own, thoughts around why do I dismiss something from people I don't like. So, but I know you usually get vegans calling in and whining, so maybe I'm one of the first people to call from the other side.
Jordan Peterson didn't do the carnivore diet. He did a super extreme thing you could call a carnivorous diet. But Jordan Peterson didn't do there are some carbs, and I think they're lactose-based, dairy-based carbs in the carnivore diet, whereas he was doing like just beef or something crazy like that every day.
Right. Yeah, it's all kind of
his daughter who has zero expertise, isn't a doctor, isn't a nutritionist, nothing else, convinced them all to eat literally nothing but meat. And when he and I did the event in Toronto, we went out to dinner beforehand at a nice steak place, and I was stunned to watch the order and what arrived, which was he wanted a steak cooked on a clean grill with no veggies, no seasoning, no nothing. I think they were allowed maybe salt, and that's it. And so everybody else gets a plate of food that represents some sort of balanced diet, and he was just sitting there eating a slab of meat. And if you like that, if you want to do that, that's fine. But it's not. If you're going to say that it's a healthy diet, you are demonstrably wrong.
I will say, when I first heard that story, I kind of rolled my eyes at can you clean the grill, please? That's not my best I've done of him so far. But I now have to do that because it turns out I'm very sensitive to garlic and onion powder, which is often on the grill. Which is
going to make it really difficult for Arden to cook anything for you, because Arden puts about 10 times the garlic in that most people would want, and it's awesome.
There's a possibility that once I have things under control, I can try these enzymes called FODzymes that might help that out, but we'll find out. You think that's bad? For pizza's like my favorite thing that exists, and I haven't been able to have it in forever, and I probably may not ever be able to again. It sucks. Anyway, Mark, that's neither here nor there. Anything else for I would say that most often the argument from authority is going to be a genetic fallacy, though often arguments from authorities, or the opposite, is usually going to be a genetic or an ad hominem. And though funny enough, an argument from authority can also be a genetic fallacy in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, obviously I don't know Michaela Peterson. I don't really trust if she's really telling the truth. I just know people with similar issues that she's had have had pretty successful,
As a temporary diet, as I recall, he did it for way too long. I don't know if he's still doing it. But yes, for example, people who have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and certain forms of IBS have found some relief from it by doing short-term carnivore diet.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it longer. I've been doing it for about 4 years now, but yeah.
I don't think that's well recommended by people, but you go live your life and make sure you're
130 pounds lost and nearly the best condition in my health.
Sure.
In my life is.
As long as you're consulting with nutritionists, deciding how many pounds lost doesn't work because there's lots of unhealthy ways to lose pounds. But you go, if your doctors agree, then you go with doctors. Good enough.
Yep.
All right.
Keep it on the list of options.
See you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
I think it's wild when people go, this diet definitely works. I lost this many pounds. All right, great. Well, guess what else works? Eating disorders.
It's undeniable that the Manjaro diet and the Ozempic diet and all those other diets that are making use of that same medication, they do promote weight loss. Whether or not it's the best way or the preferred way to lose weight is a whole nother issue. And granted, I'm happier to be smaller than I used to be. But I lost a bunch of weight without being on any medication because I was dying and I had multiple heart attacks. Because I didn't have health care. I wasn't taking care of myself. My diabetes wasn't managed. And I was in just an absolutely monstrously stressful situation. Had multiple heart attacks, lost a bunch of weight. Okay, fine. Now, my heart's fine. My blood pressure's fine. My diabetes is treated. But it's harder and harder for me to find the medication that I need because so many people are gaming the system so that they can get prescribed, Manjaro, was it Wachovia and all these others.
Yeah.
And it's like, when I go to pick up my prescription, they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're out." And I did an episode of the Hang Up where I was like, at the start of the show, I was like, if you're gaming the system so you can look better in a smaller bikini, knock it the fuck off. I need my medicine. And 2 days later, my prescription showed up.
Yeah, it's I'm currently losing weight without those medications for a similar reason to Matt before, because I need to, in addition to other health things that it was exacerbating. But I'm also on a super restrictive diet. It would almost be hard to gain weight right now. I'd have to eat a shit ton of rice. I'm gonna go to let me pop this into our thing just because we've got. Listen, if you are a theist, we most would like to talk to you. We would love to hear why you believe in God, why you believe in ghosts, anything supernatural. You are who we want to have a chat with. But in the meantime, let's find out what Gary's problem is. Gary, very aggressive notes we have in here. So Gary, you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt. What's your problem, Gary?
I was actually, problem was the whole bit about the debate and the Newsom thing. Thing is, I stumbled across your guys' channel because I'm dealing with some debates about religion and whatnot, and got some tips off of you, and I was getting sucked in down the rabbit hole, and wanted to see if wanted to see if it's worth my time keep listening and whatnot.
Well, I'm not a car salesman. I'm not going to try to sell you on anything, but if you have any challenges, feel free to bring them.
I have no idea.
The first job.
Can you just not hear me? Am I incapable of being heard? Okay, then why are you still talking?
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, if you could hear me talking, it doesn't make sense why you would keep talking over me. But also, when you start with this thing,
no, I didn't hear you at first. I heard.
Would you shut the fuck up?
His name is.
Shut up,
Shane.
Stop talking over me. The thing is, I'm happy to have a discussion with you about this or whatever else you want. But when you portray it in the sense of, oh, I've been listening to you guys for a while now, and now I'm going to put you to the test to see if it's worth. Shut the fuck up. Why? What the? You know what? I think I'm just going to hang up on you. I don't see. I don't see any reason. I don't see any reason to have a conversation with some jackass who continues to interrupt me while I'm telling him that I'm happy to have the conversation, but I don't give a shit about your attitude or the fact that you're talking over me. Would you like to talk about this, or do you want me to drop you like a piece of shit hot rock?
Hey, it's your show. Do whatever you want.
Okay.
Thanks for the permission.
I'll leave it to Jimmy now that I have permission to run my show however I want.
I just want to say, Gary, I do not care if you ever watch again. In fact, I don't care if anybody ever watches again. We put out a product that we think is important to us. If it resonates with people, we're happy that it resonates with them. Gary, you don't get to tell me what my heart or mind is. You have no idea what the fuck.
Did you just accuse us of lying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Gary,
so you're calling in to accuse us of lying. So now when I stop talking, I
didn't call in to accuse you of lying. You just lied. I'm putting you on the spot, same way you do with all the other people.
Prove it's a lie.
First of all, I'm going to mute your ass. I didn't say you just called in to accuse us of lying. I said you just called in and accused us of lying. When I'm done talking, I will unmute you, and then you are going to say, here is the lie that one or both of you said. And if you do that, I'll keep talking to you. And if you don't, I will hang up on you. So what lie did either of us just tell?
You said you don't care if anybody likes what you got to say.
That's not what I said.
Okay, so what did you say?
I said...
Hang on. How is it you don't know what he said, but you called him a liar?
Because that's what I heard.
Well... No, it's not what you heard. It's what you think you heard. Yeah. What'd you say, Jimmy?
Okay, that's what
Gary,
I think
actually,
I heard.
I'd like a concession from you that right now, because you did not hear me correctly, I'm going to repeat nearly word for word what I said after, that you actually don't know whether a lie was told or not. Is that correct?
No, that's correct.
Great. Gary, what I actually said was, I don't care if anyone watches again. However, we put out a product with what we think is important, and I hope it resonates with people. And for the people who it does resonate with, I'm happy to have them watch. But if I was making a product, this is now my continuation, rebutting your stupid thing, that was purely entertainment and was, say, inflaming people and did no good, I have been very, very open with the fact that I hate being a public figure. And every single person who knows me well, including the guy to my right now, will tell you that off air, I am often expressing the exact same sentiments. And that the fact of the matter is, the reason why I'm coming back is purely because I believe in the work we do, and not because I have any interest in being more popular, in being more famous. Not at all. Genuinely, being a public figure fucking sucks for a person like me. So, Gary, would you like to retract your statement that we are liars and now apologize for it?
Well, I'm apologizing for it. And again, I'm taking what you're saying, which is a mistake on my end, as speaking for the both of you, because what you just said definitely doesn't apply for Matt.
Well, if I had said the word we,
first of all,
that would have mattered, but I said I.
So first of all, I'm going to mute you so that you don't interrupt me and bust my zen. Fuck you, Gary. When you say it doesn't apply to me, it does in fact apply to me. I'm the guy that still's never made a penny off my fucking YouTube channel to this goddamn day. Okay? So when you start challenging my integrity, here, let me ask you this question, Gary. Why don't we have your pronouns listed?
Because I think that's a joke.
Okay. I think you're not worth talking to, and I'm going to hang up on you now unless Jimmy has a reason for me not to.
No, I have no desire to continue with Gary.
Goodbye,
Gary,
bitch.
I don't care if you ever watch again. Please don't, in fact.
No, unwatch, don't watch, unsubscribe. I am sick to death of you whiny little troll bigot bitches making suggestions about what my motivation and thoughts are. I've dedicated my entire life to this. When I worked a day job, I used every day of my vacation and every bit of my life savings until I was broke and without health care, working to advocate for secular humanism and atheism. While I do, in fact, make money off of this and off Patreon, thanks to kind people who support what I'm doing, all of the content is given out for free, and my personal YouTube channel has not netted me a single penny yet, although that is going to change. When you come in here and start asserting that you know that Jimmy and I, or Jimmy or I, are lying and that we're trying to be popular or whatever else, you need to check yourself, because you are monumentally stupid. Unlike a lot of the other atheists who are out there putting up clickbait left and right and trying to do this so that they don't have to get a real job. Hi, Eric. Some of us have this as a life mission and not only did this for free, but paid to do this. I paid to do this with my vacation days, with my 401k, with my life savings, and with my fucking health to the tune of a triple bypass. So Gary, who doesn't want to give your pronouns because you think it's a joke, you're the fucking joke. Stop watching. Go the fuck away. Don't ever call me again.
Before someone thinks there's a conspiracy, Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels is a perfectly lovely man and not who Matt was referring to.
Correct.
Eric, who works at the line, is amazing.
I was not referring to anybody who's ever been here.
Let's talk to, I'm finally so happy to have an actual theist, and I bet it's going to go better. There's the proof that we're not mean to just theists. We're mean to assholes, regardless of their theological statement. But I won't even say mean, just. Christian in Maryland, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt, and I'd love to hear why you believe in God, and it sounds like it has to do with the mind and the soul. You're up. The mic is yours. Go for it.
So, hey, Matt and Jimmy, I'm new to the show. I wouldn't call myself a theist so much as someone who's had 3 bipolar, I'm sorry, I'm very nervous just calling in, but 3 bipolar, 1 manic episodes that have been religious after being an atheist for my whole middle school and high school years, and still don't really have any good articulable reason to believe in the God I believe in. But the God I believe in is, I think if there is one, and it's weird, these two weird Bible verses where in the Old Testament, the Old Testament God replies to Moses and says, I am that I am. And then Jesus says, before Abraham was, I am. And my manic experiences was just this constant kind of blackout, between blackout and not blackout of memory. But all I remember is this like constant hearing of I am. And what's interesting is when I woke up in the hospital the first time, we learned a lot about mindfulness meditation and how focusing on the moment can really bring you into out of the anxiety of maybe the future or the depression of the past. And I just thought it was interesting that is the name that is mentioned twice, and it's kind of what stuck in my head. And again, I don't pray to God, I don't pray to Jesus, and I watch your show to kind of get closer to the truth. But I just wondered your thoughts on maybe the mind and the soul and the connection, or if there is any, or if it's all just kind of thrown out there.
I was dealing with something in chat. Matt, were you?
Well, I was listening, but I heard about mindfulness meditation, and then there was a reference to why it was called that. And I don't think I understand the question, Christian.
Oh, well, no, I guess, I was just saying that I was saying how the Old Testament God, when theoretically, if he was asked in the Bible how it's written, he replies and says, my name is I am that I am. Like, that's the name that is given. And then Jesus replies to the Pharisees that they're called and says, before Abraham was, I am. And my manic episodes, I couldn't stop focusing on the words I am, and it kind of brought me out of that. And I just think it's interesting that in mindfulness meditation, the word I am is actually, it can be used to bring you into the moment. And if there was any benefit to any of that, or if it's just time to throw it out, because again, I'm new to the show.
So you're saying in mindfulness meditation, the words I am are somehow relevant. Well, is it only in English that they're relevant? Because an English translation isn't going to tell you what Jesus actually said, if he even existed and said anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, okay, I understand that. I guess I just wanted to say the reason why I'm watching your show, and I'll get off the call real quick because I know this isn't probably what you were exactly looking for, but was just the reason I believe in God were kind of these consistent manic episodes that brought me into a belief that I really don't have any interest in having.
So you have manic episodes, and it's got you to believe something that you wish you didn't believe?
Well, I don't know if it doesn't have any true negative impact on my life other than the fact that I'm possibly missing out on truth. But just the idea of there being the connection between the mind and how maybe psychosis and madness is it all just a physical chemical reaction up there?
I don't know that there's any way to know. One of the things is that the proposition, so like, without getting into specifics, something has convinced you that there's either a God or likely a God, even if you're not able to, properly give it characteristics and stuff.
Yeah.
And so what I would suggest is, before you say, I would spend more time looking into what it is that you actually believe, how you can kind of define it, and then figure out what the reasons are that you might be led to have that view, because it could be the case, and I'm not saying this is it. I don't want to diminish anything that might in fact be real, but if your manic episodes or anything about, your thoughts are leading you leaning towards, ooh, is there some significance here? You could be kind of dogpiling on that possible significance and building up to make it fit somebody else's God model, even though that God model may not be true or real. And so getting to the core of what it is that, you're finding compelling or that is directing you down this path, is important, because if at the end of the day, if what you find is, I have, for example, I feel a sense of peace when I pray. I'm not saying that's you. I'm saying that if somebody is like, I'm convinced there's a God because when I sit down and pray, I feel a sense of peace. That is, I understand that can be a very compelling justification for some people to think that there is some God or some being who's caring about you and interacting with you in some way that you can't really, detect when you're praying. But you have to also recognize that this could be consistent with, does it matter who you pray to when you have that feeling? If you pray to a cheese grater and you feel peace when you pray to the cheese grater, then maybe what we're doing is we're learning something about how the human mind works, and we're not really learning anything about how or if a God works. And so one of the things from the biblical standpoint, it's like, thou shalt not put thy Lord thy God to the test. And I'm like, that might be the worst thing that's ever been printed, because you should absolutely put the claims of a God to the test, because a God has nothing to fear from being tested.
Right. Yeah, so it's interesting that earlier you mentioned compelling towards another person's God model, because as you can tell, my name is Christian. So as you could relic a guess, I was raised in the Presbyterian, Christian American Evangelical Church. So what I've come to most likely believe is any manic episodes I have kind of just goes back to the conditioning I had as a child. But it was just hard to believe that for so long, because I couldn't believe that my mind was so warped by that information as a kid that it was able to have a control over my mind even in those states.
Yeah, I bet. I would say, it sounds like to me that you're kind of flat. Don't take this the wrong way. I don't mean this to be insulting. Actually, I'm rather impressed. You seem to be floundering in confusion, where you're not really sure what you believe or why you believe it, and your brain is doing the thing that everybody's brain does, because our brains evolved to excel at pattern recognition and connecting the dots. And the problem with being so good at connecting the dots is that we become hyperactive at connecting the dots, so that when the bush moves over there, you're going to have two different types of errors. One person's going to think there's nothing in the bush that's dangerous, and then they're going to go over there and get eaten, if in fact there is. And somebody else is going to think there's something in the bush that's dangerous, and they're not going to get eaten, whether there's something dangerous in there or not. So that second type of error doesn't get corrected. And so this ability of ours to see agency and make connections of, what if, this phrase "I am," which is, it's used in mindfulness meditation, and it's in the Bible this way. I mean, it's going to escape most people that, okay, you're looking at it in English instead of Greek or Aramaic or Hebrew, as the case may be. And for some people, it wouldn't even matter, because it's about the concept, not the language, which I'm a big fan of. The problem is, once you remove yourself from addressing the actual language and say it's about the concept, you now open yourself up to finding metaphor and analogy and even more connections that you wouldn't have if you were being strictly literal. And so it's this wonderful thing about, we're so good at some of this shit that we're bad at it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. That's why I'm watching you guys pretty much every day. So I'll hop off the call, let you guys get to someone a little more argumentative for you.
Sure, thanks.
Glad you watch. I would be fine with continuing to watch, unlike our previous caller. Thank you, Christian.
Yeah, no, I understand. Well, I don't have much more to say, so I'll continue watching and learning.
Great. Thanks, Christian. See ya.
All right, thank you.
720-619-2288. Again, we are happy to talk to Theists, as that is who we are most prioritizing. And to that end, a person with no pronouns, I suppose I will have to default to the universal pronouns they, them. So we've got Adam in New York. Adam in New York, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Hi, Matt.
You're on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Hi, Adam.
Matt, you're a fat fuck and your girlfriend is a man.
Wow,
Cool.
you're so impressive. We're so impressed by you, Adam. That
I got your phone number, dumbass. I literally have your phone number.
We're so impressed that you're able to, like a 4-year-old, call into a show and just yell slurs. You haven't won an argument. All you've attempted to do is call in and cause somebody psychological distress who does this for a living. It brushes off. No one will remember you. No one will care. And by the way, I know you've been talking this whole time because you haven't disconnected, because you haven't figured out you're muted. No, so I know you can hear me, Adam, and your ability to articulate anything shows me that your defense for a God actually existing would be dog shit if we ever cared to hear it. Matt, if you care to hear it, all on mute, but I don't give a shit.
Oh, no. I have his phone number. I put it on the list. So the next time Adam with no pronouns or anybody else calls from 413, blah, 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 I will know. And we won't have to waste any time. Matter of fact, I'll probably just put Adam on hold and keep Adam on hold. Oh no, that actually might be problematic. But Adam, thank you so much for your call. It's always good when we get a bigoted troll to call in and tell on themselves. So bye.
And last thought for, I had a last thought for Adam. I'm sure you're watching in the afterwards. Just so you know, you're the reason why you're so lonely. You're the reason why you aren't able to make meaningful connections. It's not them, it's you.
Yeah.
All right.
Bummer.
Yeah, well, someone needed to tell him.
It's okay. It's frustrating because, for years I hosted Atheist Experience and other shows. And I remember, it's funny, somebody put together a best of clip years ago. And it was like, fat Matt with hair, fat Matt with hair, fat Matt with less hair, fat Matt with less hair, fat Matt with no hair, and then gradually thinner and thinner Matt with no hair. And then we hit the point where I started getting treatment for my disease, and then Matt started getting fatter again. And so now, despite the fact that I used to weigh 270 pounds, now I go between 195 and 205, depending on what's going on. So while I'm definitely heavier, perhaps than is ideal, the notion that the best thing you can do is call in and call me a fat fuck. It's like when people used to call in and be like, Matt, you're bald and you're fat. I'm like, tell me something I don't know. I mean, I'm bald and I'm fat. But now it's like you stopped watching 15 years ago when I was much heavier and decided to keep going with the same insult. Next time, just call me daddy and tell your mom I said hi.
Call me daddy and tell your dad I said hi. I'm waiting to see something. We do have some other calls lined up. We've got another theist caller. Thank you to the people who've also been patient, but I'm waiting to see.
That's an interesting question.
Waiting to see one thing in specific here. What was the area code again on the last one?
413. It's a Massachusetts one, even though he was calling from New York.
Yeah. I'm going to do something a little bit fun. And this person can't tell because they're currently in the screening room. I'm going to turn off the master for the call because there's another 413 call going. And I'm going to bring them on, nice. And only you and I will be able to hear them if it is just the other person thinking they've outsmarted us, that they've tricked us to get.
It's not the same number though.
No, that's fine. But if they're using a lot of times it'll be the same area code. Is it the same first 6 digits?
No.
Okay. I'm still going to test it just because it's quite a coincidence. Sure. But if it's not, I'll just turn it back on. But I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see if they are trying to outsmart us. I've got my expected slurs technique ready to go. It's taking a while to screen. Let me just check what's going on here. Is the MA one almost done? Okay, wait. There we go. All right, let's just see.
I'm follically challenged and plush.
Ed in Massachusetts, you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt. How are you, Ed? Oh, wait. Sorry, say that again. You were muted. All right, hang on just a second, Ed. So the reason I'm telling you to hang on is because I actually turned off your ability to be heard by the master because you had the same area code of the last troll caller. It doesn't sound like you're a troll, so we're just going to start the call brand new, start it over, and we'll go from there.
It's so funny to have to do this.
Well, it was going to be worth the payoff if I was right. But let's just start over.
Anyway,
Ed in Massachusetts, you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt. Go ahead, Ed.
Hey, Ed.
Great to hear from, to talk to both of you. I've watched the show for a while.
Awesome.
It says here that agriculture led you to a God belief. I am desperate. Like I'm willing to sit here and shut up. All I need to know from you is which God do you believe in, and how did agriculture point to a particular God? Or did it, I guess?
Well, I guess it led me to maybe an early concept of God that people may have had, because in regenerative agriculture, we're looking very differently than traditional agriculture, even back to the Bible times. We're not all focused on chemistry and killing everything and monocultures and all that sort of thing. We've realized that biology is incredibly important. And instead of killing everything, we're trying to create agriculture more like food is produced more naturally, like in a rainforest. And we're deeply into the science, into understanding the microbes, how they all work, the biomes of the plant, what is real nutrition. And of course, that's fairly new stuff. So I grew up in a New England Protestant, went to Sunday school. And then as I got a little older, I realized a lot of stuff like in the Bible, because that's what I had access to. That's where, as you've often said, it's where you grew up. I realized a lot of that didn't make sense. And if the God of the Bible or whatever was trying to tell people about food and killing and weeds and all these things, that was all wrong, because we realized that approach was wrong. So what we do is we go back to thinking about, okay, the people, when they went from hunter-gatherer to basically agriculture, they had to be stewards of their environment. They had to learn what they could eat, it didn't make them sick or die, and how they had to manage the different food sources they had around. They couldn't eat too much of this. They couldn't eat, had to understand, if you're going to eat an animal, you want to get the males instead of the females. Otherwise, they're going to go extinct. All those sort of things became very much about observation and wisdom and experience. And so as I got into more regenerative agriculture, and when we farm and we look at the complexity of our ecosystem, for us to be successful working with nature, we have to understand it, and it's very complex. As Lynn Margulis, who was married to Carl Sagan, came out with the great realization of symbiotic relationships. And so when you're a farmer and you're farming, you try to do what's best for nature, because that's what's going to be best for you and for your production. And it's extremely complex. So when I was doing that, what I had to realize was there's this huge symbiotic relationship of life in the world. And I have to try to understand and do the best I can and care for those symbiotic relationships. And when you do something, you don't know whether it's going to be right or wrong, but you learn because nature's honest with you. So you learn that way. So
I'm
in
confused.
a way, I started realizing, go ahead.
I have no idea what this has to do with a God. It basically, you're saying we need to understand biology, and the way we do that is by conducting experiments, because nature's not going to lie to you.
Right, Ed. I've yet to hear an argument that more advocates for a God than the complexity of what you would expect in evolving ecological systems over the course of 5 billion years.
Well, when you're doing that, and in the action of that, what you're doing is you're hoping that whole you're benefiting. and that whole isn't necessarily just nature because of a lot of energy and everything else that's involved with it.
No.
Of
Ed,
course
Ed,
that's
I'm going to
just
stop
very
you.
easy to
Ed,
see
Ed, I
how
need to stop
God.
you. Ed, I need to stop you. I need to know what this has to do with a God, because you just moved on to whole and then energies, and now you're just talking about stuff that's not specific. How does agriculture point to a particular God?
I could see how people early on, when they had to live this way, had to live with this direct relationship, could come up with a term for that, which could easily be, and I recognize as a possibility of it being a God, in the sort of in Spinoza's way of thinking of a God,
Yeah, Ed,
or as Einstein said.
Ed, are you basically just advocating for a weird metaphorical deistic Spinoza's God that agriculture points to?
Well, I'm thinking that's where the original thought of God probably came from.
And we don't care
Okay.
why you believe other people believe
I'm not
in
in the slightest bit interested in your speculations about the origin. I asked a very specific question. Do you believe in an abstract metaphorical Spinoza's God?
In a Spinoza's God, not in a being of a God that has.
I'm sorry, you cut out. The God that you believe in,
not an external God.
Hang on, Ed, hang on. Are you saying that you do not believe in an actual God, but you only believe in a metaphorical Spinoza's God?
That's what I struggle with, trying to compare those two, because I think that in a natural way I could see where that became God.
I'm not asking you, Ed, for the last fucking time, I'm not asking you to speculate about where the origin of God concepts came from. I'm asking you, Ed, you said you are a theist and that agriculture pointed you to God belief. And I'm saying, is the God belief that you, Ed, currently have merely a metaphorical Spinoza's God, or is it an actual agent?
It's not an actual agent.
Then I don't care.
External.
I don't care.
And I
don't care.
And I brought that up with the screener.
I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah,
because all you've done, Ed, is say, hey, I've seen some things in agriculture, and I can understand how ancient people might, when learning these things about agriculture, might have invented God concepts to describe the aspects of how life and biology and everything works that they don't understand. I genuinely do not give the slightest fuck for anybody's armchair speculation about the origin of gods or God concepts. What I care about is people who are advocating for a particular God and what we should do and live our lives based on that God belief.
And that's what basically we're doing. We're trying to understand God in the sense of the symbiotic relations of life and everything that we interact with to be in favor. Now, I understand it's not an external God, and I think civilizations created from that.
Stop. Imagine how horrible the show would be.
It's like he's not listening to the thing I said.
We just made the question of the show. Please call in and tell us why you think some people might have believed in God. Because you're not even really here advocating for anything but a special equivocated version for your own God. You definitely don't believe in the God of classical theism, but you're trying to connect what you have to why people in the past might have been. So if we just did that show, atheists call in, and then we're getting people, I think it's because they're stupid. I think they can't critically think. I think it's mental illness. This isn't as bad as those, but that's essentially what the show is turning into. Ed, you seem like a perfectly lovely person. There's no reason to assign the word God to what you were talking about. evolution, ecology, that's all fine and adequate for it. If you're going to keep doing it, I can't control what you do. Maybe it makes it so you can more conveniently fit into a community of believers around you, because that tends to seem to be the motivation of people who need to make the word God work for some belief of theirs because they want to be accepted by a community or something. It's often why people are like, no, I'm not an atheist, I'm an agnostic, and then they describe atheism. I don't know what your motivation is, Ed, but I'd like to move on because this just isn't the conversation that we're trying to have today.
That's fine. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Bye-bye. We're never going to do that show, by the way. Atheists, call in and tell us why you think other people believe in God.
It is a subject that, first of all, I understand the interest in it. I've had interest in the past. The thing is, I very quickly got to a point where it's like, oh, we don't have a time machine.
Yeah.
And you can't dig into prehistory and investigate. If there's not documentation, then what are you doing? Are you saying, you look at the beginning of 2001, A Space Odyssey, where the obelisk comes down and fundamentally changes our ancestors, supposedly. That speculation is as reasonable as saying, oh, they learned about agriculture and that led them to God belief. Or one of my favorites, and because it doesn't just intuitively make sense. Let's say Jimmy and I are living back in prehistory and we're standing next to each other at a tree and we are communicating in whatever way we've been communicating. Jimmy just did something incredibly funny. I laugh. Jimmy falls over dead on the ground. And now I'm in a situation where this other person that I've been interacting with, who was animated, who had light in their eyes in a metaphoric sense, who was communicating, who was laughing, who was funny, is now motionless. What changed between the minute that Jimmy was making me laugh and the moment that he was dead? I don't know, because I'm staring at essentially a black box. I don't know the specifics about what works and doesn't work inside of a human being, but it's perfectly reasonable in the absence of any other evidence and to speculate maybe there was something inside of Jimmy that was animating this body, and whatever it was that was animating the body has left. Now, that is a thought process that is it's ridiculous now. The concept of a soul is, as I've said many times, the single most dead concept in all of theology because of what we know about the brain and identity now. But once upon a time, in much the same way that once upon a time, it was perfectly reasonable to conclude that the sun went around the earth because all of the evidence supported that until you start learning about, other heavenly bodies. And so those sort of reasonable conclusions could very well lead to a God belief. And so could 20 other things. Agriculture, for many, you look at like ancient Greeks and you look at the golden ratio, and we start finding it everywhere, and then we start finding it in nature, and we start giving it significance, and ooh, this must be it. And if anything, like I was more compelled by the golden ratio in nature to believe in a kind of God of nature than anything any specific religion has ever presented. When from now on, I'm going to have to remember that, because Donald in Magic-Land is one of my favorite cartoon videos of all time. It's educational, but at the end of it, it goes through the golden ratio and, shows it showing up in seashells and trees and other stuff. It turns out we have a really good understanding of why this ends up happening. And it has to do, in origami and stuff, you have principles of circle packing, but it's just a matter of efficiency, that the seeds in a sunflower grow in those concentric armed rings because of efficiency. Basically, your limb grows out and it gets to a point where it's no longer efficient to feed the whole limb, so it branches off a branch so that those two can get the portion of water and nutrients that they need, and then each one of those branch off. It makes sense once you understand it. But prior to that, it makes sense that people would presume there's some guiding principle or God and metaphor. It could be agriculture. It could be the golden ratio. It could be, why did Jimmy stop making me laugh and why are the bugs eating him?
However, I will say, if you are very interested in the idea of how religion got from where it was to where it is and how the concept of God evolved, stay tuned for later this month when David Fitzgerald is on the Hang Up to talk about his new book series called Playing God, which I have read and is incredible. It's about to come out, I think in July, but maybe in digital form in July. I don't know. Anyway, it's a really, really good series, and y'all should definitely check it out.
Well, we've got a number of theists, so take your pick. I'm ready.
Angel, you've been waiting the longest here of the theists. Angel, you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, guys. How are you?
Peachy.
Hi. How are things in Ireland?
Good.
I'm glad to hear that. I may have to escape there. My ancestors came from there, so I might have to go back.
Okay, great. So I've been watching for the show for kind of a long time now. And I know you guys have heard like so many different arguments, basically the same arguments over and over again. So I'm well aware that I'm probably not going to convince you that a God exists. However, I just want to have just a nice discussion. So
Sweet.
I am Black, and sorry, were you going to say something?
No. I'm happy to have a discussion about where you try to convince us of God or about whatever else. And I was just saying, I said sweet, so please continue.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just didn't want to interrupt you.
No, that's fair.
So I was having a discussion with my friend. She's a Black atheist, and she was like, why do you believe in God after all the hardships that, Christianity put our people through? Because like we're both African. And I was like, I understand like that point, but like I view religion as neutral. Like I don't really neutral to positive. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of biased. Like for example, like when it comes to Christianity, you have one extreme when you have the KKK and they were lynching Black people and doing all these terrible things, and of course white supremacy, etc. One thing that really stood out to me is that she said that Christianity is the perfect breeding ground for white supremacy. And I disagree with that. And then on the other hand, you had people like Martin Luther King and also the civil rights movement. Like a lot of it was backed up with community and, protesters, they would congregate within the church. And like there was just so much community in there. And I think that's like just, absolutely like beautiful. And also in the Bible itself, it said, love your neighbor as yourself. And then you also had Jesus, preaching about, love and community and all that stuff. So my question to you guys is, because I know you guys, aren't fans of religion. So I know like there are good sides and there are bad sides. Why is it that a lot of you guys would be persistent that even though religion does have its benefits, why are you guys persistent on the fact that it's bad? Because I remember, I think I saw a clip.
Angel, I can just take the question as is and grant you that is the case. And it's not difficult because everything that is good that comes from religion can be done without it. But many of the things which are bad that come from religion happen because of it. So all the things that you're describing, you basically gave a super cherry-picked argument. The Bible has this great thing, and the religious people have done this great thing. And many times the things you are describing of is in spite of the other people or in spite of the other verses. Jesus says, love thy neighbor in the book where he is God, commanded the murder of a lot of neighbors, commanded genocides, commanded slavery, all types of things that are terrible. And if we're looking at different systems and comparing, you can sit there and say, I look at the Bible and it's good. And sure, some people are going to use it for bad, but it's not an arbitrary some people are going to use it for bad. The people who are most often using it for that are very apparently evil to you and I, Angel, are the people who take the words of the Bible most literally. Fundamentalism, which is that concept of a strict adherence to the words on the page, almost always breeds these horrible people. And so it's not actually Christians, like I would dare say yourself, Angel, who are reading the book and going, I see the words, but I'm going to morph it to fit what I don't even know is a more humanist worldview. But that's what it is. It is that these religions, while they have great things like community, you can have community without that, and you're always catching up to humanism. Whereas secular humanism, you read the Humanist Manifesto, there's no way to read those and accidentally go, well, if I shift these words, I can be perfectly evil. There's no way to defend that. No reasonable way to. Whereas the reasonable way to defend that you should be an evil person from reading the Bible is just to take it literally.
Yeah.
I understand. Oh, sorry. Do you want to say something?
No, go ahead, Angel. I'll go after you're done.
Okay, but like, let's just say hypothetically, like a robber came, like, okay, you were like robbed twice, okay? And the first person is like an atheist. He breaks into your house. And the second person is like, okay, I'm robbing your house because like of like my spiritual belief. Do you guys think that the situation is different, even though the outcome is the same?
How do I know the first person's an atheist? And so there's nothing about burglarizing my house that is in any way clearly tied to any aspect of atheism or Christianity that I'm aware of. I mean, atheist, there's no moral precepts there, but as a secular humanist, thievery would be immoral. And the Bible, which is the primary source that I'll use for Christianity, would suggest that it's also wrong to break into my home and steal things. So in those two scenarios, whether or not the person's an atheist or theist, I don't give a shit.
But Matt's got the first point Matt made there. I don't know if there's one that you understood when you said it. Asked the question, Angel. If a person does something that we would consider evil, like rob somebody, because the book says to rob somebody, and an atheist robs somebody, their motivation, the atheist motivation, will not be atheism. But in that scenario, with the hypothetical commandment in place, their motivation would be religious. There is no, atheism can't motivate you to do anything.
Yeah, I would say, I grew up primarily a Southern Baptist. And so when I if I just look at the bare bones question, is Christianity a breeding ground for white supremacy, which is what the call's going to put in briefly. My answer is yes, but not because of tenets of Christianity. Right. It's not like there's explicit things in the Bible that support white supremacy, but the ideas in there have been used to provide cover complicitness with that. And I mean, there's actual data. So there's this survey that was conducted in 2018, found that white Christians, including evangelical Protestants, are nearly twice as likely as people who are religiously unaffiliated to say that the killing of black men by police are isolated events rather than part of a pattern of how police treat African Americans. Similarly, white Christians are about 30 percentage points more likely to say that Confederate soldier monuments are symbols of Southern pride rather than symbols of racism. And you can have a debate about what is it really showing here. But what this demonstrates, it also pointed out that white Christians are about 20 percentage points more likely to disagree with the statement, generations of slavery and discrimination have created conditions that make it difficult for blacks to work their way out of the lower class. That is just almost a straight, unavoidable, undebatable fact that what America did by creating this massive class disparity by enslaving African Americans and then holding off on treating them as equal, holding off on giving them the right to vote, even, we move through this, has put people from different racial backgrounds in different starting blocks in the race. And so while the starting gun goes off at the same time for everybody, there are some people who have a metaphorical head start. And if white Christians are 30% more likely to disagree with that sentiment, and they're more likely to say that, hey, when police are killing, black men, it's not really part of any sort of pattern. It's just, an isolated event. When the data show otherwise, then it seems that there's a problem within Christianity, not necessarily with what the Bible says or with what any particular denomination or minister is saying, but because there is this, it does promote an us versus them mentality. And I remember, as one example, my mom was opposed to interracial marriages and tried to use the Bible as justification for that, up until one mixed race couple joined our church, and my mom got to meet them and found out that they were just absolutely lovely people. And all of a sudden, this changed my mom's view on whether or not mixed race couples should be married, or whether it was ungodly to do. My mom probably changed her mind easier and quicker than many other white Protestant Christians are going to change their mind on those subjects. And so it ends up being a place not where everyone's a racist, not where every minister or church is advocating for racism, not where the correct interpretation of the Bible is in fact racist, but it ends up being the sort of place where implicit racist ideas are fostered and provided cover because you already have an us versus them mentality, and you get to other those people. Oh, we're not like the Jews. Oh, we're not like, the Catholics. Oh, we're not like this. Oh, we're not like, even the Ethiopian Christians and stuff with their background. They have a different, and it's weird, and it's just viewed as, mystical stuff. It is a bunch of ignorance. And what Christianity does is allows that ignorance to stay shielded and keeps people from having to answer for the views that they have.
Angel, I do want to, before we turn it back over, I do want to actually hit one thing that I realized we blew past, and it's actually the most important thing here, because the original question at its core is, why with all of those good things do we still, do people like Matt and myself still argue against religion, fight against religion? And actually every single thing that Matt and I have presented so far isn't the number one reason. The number one reason is they are evidently not true. Because whether or not something is, believing in something is good or not, is not my top one, isn't my highest priority. I don't want to believe in something even if it's good because it's good. I want to believe in something if it's true. Lots of terrible things like cancer are true, and it's actually useful to believe in them that they are true, even though they are horrible. And that's the number one thing, Angel. If there's a main motivation, it should be, if you are going to still adhere to this, we should at least have established whether it's true or not. And so, Angel, more important to me than what you're getting out of your community, more important to me than any of that stuff would be, do you care whether what you believe is true? Now, the mic back to you, Angel, please.
Yeah, of course. Of course, I want to believe in what is true, but I also want to believe what is true and what is beneficial. I think,
No. In this scenario, we're talking about true or beneficial. What I'm suggesting, Angel, is if your religion is not true, but it's still beneficial, do you still want to believe in it? Because the implication of your original question is that we're atheists. Obviously, we believe that they're not true, and yet we're still fighting them despite that you think they are good or often good. The implication of that is, if something is good and untrue, you shouldn't fight against it. And so what is it? Do you still, your religion, Angel, whatever it is, and I think I was picking up that it was a type of Christianity, Would you want to still believe it if it wasn't true? And you knew that.
I don't think so. No.
Sure. Now, I do need to step away for a moment. I got to take care of some health stuff, but I'm going to leave you with Matt, and you two can back and forth there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, wrong.
But yeah, something that Jimmy said, he was talking about human. Is it being a human secular? I'm not sure what the term is.
Secular humanism.
He was basically, yeah. So he was basically saying something like no one does something wrong in the sake of human secularism. I apologize if I misunderstood his argument, but like
what he was saying is that there's nothing like if you listed the principles of secular humanism, no principle of secular humanism could be used to justify a racist act or a thieving act or a murderous act. That's one of the differences between secular humanist principles and some, not all, but some religious principles.
But hasn't there been cases of like, forgive me if like the information isn't accurate. Hasn't there been cases of like, the USSR and like their harmful principles? Like, weren't they like starkly anti-theist or?
They weren't. That wasn't an instance of secular humanism. That was an instance of we're going to eliminate particular religions, not because of any principle of atheism. There is no principle of atheism, but by the goal of essentially making the state God. The problem with an imposed atheistic Russian regime, etc., is rather than seeking to eliminate religions that can't, through reason and debate and convincing people, they wanted to outlaw it. Secular humanism doesn't advocate for outlawing it. I would never outlaw religion. I would outlaw certain practices if your religion says, hey, we get to run around, burning our initials into everybody's forehead. No, you fucking don't. It doesn't matter, doesn't matter how wonderful your religion is outside of that. It doesn't matter if it's the perfect, best religion ever. You don't get to do that to other people. And so we have boundaries there. What the Soviet Union did wasn't an implementation of secular humanism. What it did was it was an elimination of religions that would compete with the idea of the state being the God, state being the church.
Okay. I understand that. I think I want to say something, but I think you'd like disagree with it. But I want to.
Well, that happens all the time.
Okay, but like, what if I said that true Christianity is about love and like compassion and equality and understanding each other? What would be like your response to that?
I don't know how you prove what true Christianity is, because what's the foundation upon which you're going to base that? Is it the Bible? Because how do you pick which parts of the Bible you're going to pay attention to and ignore in order to reach that conclusion?
I guess what makes sense, like for example, like a lot of people think, when it comes to like kindness, etc., we know that Jesus, like we give the examples of Jesus and all the miracles and how he preached about kind and all the miracle he did, and also like about how God is love, so we should be love and we should show kindness.
But Angel,
I think you don't. I didn't even know you were back. I don't have that screen up. I think you don't have a good understanding of what the Bible actually says. And so what you're doing is cherry picking based on what you'd like it to say. And the question was, how do you tell which parts of the Bible to ignore and what's the justification for ignoring them? Because if you want to say that it's all about love, then a God who loves you isn't going to send you to hell for not believing, is he?
I mean, I think of it as in kind of like I think of it kind of like as like a punishment thing. Like,
Punishment
for
for what?
example, like for sinning.
No. This was for disbelief. So let's say you and I have both sinned the exact same amount, but you believe in Jesus and I don't. Am I going to go to hell forever and you're not?
I suppose so, yes.
How is that just? How is it possibly just to doom me for eternity for crimes that were finite? How is it just to suggest that because you believed something I didn't, even though we were equally good or bad, that you get a good reward and I get a bad one? Does that seem fair?
No, but you never know. Like, God could forgive you when you die.
Well, that's speculation. I don't believe that there is a God. I don't believe that there's any me after death. I think the very idea of a soul is beyond ridiculous and the most obviously false thing religions have ever put forward. But you just argued, Angel, that God isn't fair, but he might be. That the model isn't fair, but God might decide to be fair anyway. And it's, this is the thing, is you can say this is all about love. Cool. What about the really good secular humanist who was raised in an atheist family, who loves everyone, who promotes equality, who has avoided just tons of traps of bigotry, who is just by everyone's measure, by any reasonable measure, a vastly superior and preferable human being to Donald Trump. And yet Donald Trump gets to go to heaven because he's a Christian and this other person doesn't. How does that make sense? And how does it fit with the notion that this is just all about love?
Well, I don't believe that someone like Donald Trump is going to get into heaven.
Why not?
Honestly.
What is the criteria under which someone gets into heaven, and how are you able to tell who will or won't? Because the Bible says you don't know.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, Matt. I don't have all the answers, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. But
that's not sufficient, Angel. Angel, you came here and advocated for true Christianity. So if you say you have the right Christianity and you know what true Christianity is, how can you say you don't have all the answers or at least sufficient answers when there are other people who know a lot more about the Bible than you, who have the version of Christianity you would say is not true? What makes your true Christianity correct and their Christianity wrong when they pull from the same Bible and can cite more verses than you can in support of theirs?
Well, I grew up Christian and I was raised Christian, and I go to church very often. And when it comes to Christianity, I guess it's just like a feeling that's like within your heart.
Okay. Angel, that you're not answering my question, because you just gave another reason that they would give. So a person with the wrong version of Christianity, let's go with something we can both agree with, Westboro Baptist Church. Every time you give an argument, I'm going to give an argument as a member of the Westboro Baptist Church. Westboro Baptist Church people absolutely say they get affirmation in their heart. God writes the truth on their heart. They feel in their heart that it's true. Why is your feeling in your heart good enough reason for you to believe that you have true Christianity, but not Westboro Baptist Church?
I'm trying to think of something that's like very unique.
There isn't. This is the problem, Angel, and this is the thing we come across with all of these conversations. Angel, do I prefer you to a Westboro Baptist Church person? Of course I do. And here's the reason. You're not really letting Christianity guide your life. You are more drawn to something more similar to secular humanism, and you're trying to make it fit within a Christian framework that you have community pressure from being raised in it to be able to sufficiently fit in, essentially. The people who are, you will not be able to defend your true Christianity in any way that Westboro can't. And in fact, Westboro has a stronger case than you.
Yeah. Because what you're doing, which I generally admire, Angel, is that you've taken a religious idea and tried to make it better. Like, there's all this stuff in the Bible that you absolutely would not like. The Bible supports slavery. I mean, there's no way to deny that. It absolutely allows for, prescribes prices, tells you who you can enslave, how long you can enslave them, how you can beat them. All of these, it goes into ridiculous detail. If there was an all-knowing, all-wise, all-powerful God of the universe, it would have been very easy. When listing off the 10 commandments, number 1 would be, it is immoral to own another human being as property, period. Then you don't need any of that stuff about slavery in there. The same is true with regard to gender equality. With the Bible, I did a whole video on.
I'm so sorry. Can I just interrupt you for a sec? So I remember my pastor was like I know like we get in like a lot of like fights and stuff because I'm probably like the most like progressive person in my church. But he basically said when it comes to like slavery and all that stuff, he said that it's not that God is promoting that. He said that it's like a history book. Like this is how it was.
He lied.
Describing what happened. Is that true?
Your pastor, no. Your pastor's lying to you. Exodus 21. Do you have a Bible?
Yeah.
Open to Exodus 21.
Okay. It is open.
Exodus 21. Yeah. What version of the Bible do you have? I'll switch to that one.
New King James Version.
New King James. Let me see. King James Plus. Where is my NK? I may not have a New King James. Let me just go with the modern King James.
It's
see if that's it.
It's okay. So, you can just read out whatever you want.
Sure. Exodus 21 starts with laws about slaves. Starting at, it says, and these are the judgments which you shall set before them. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th shall go out for nothing. If he comes in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he was married, his wife shall go out with him. But if his master has given him a wife, and she has borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. Now, right there in the first 4 verses, it's setting up special rules for Jewish servants that are different from non-Jewish servants. But what the Bible does is it says, if you buy a Hebrew slave, then you have to let him go after 6 years. And if he came in with a wife, that wife shall leave with him. But if you bought a single servant and that servant was given a wife while he was yours, at the end of the 6 years, when he goes free, his wife does not go free, and neither do his kids. Unless, starting in verse 5, the servant says, I love my master, my wife, and my sons. I do not want to go free. And verse 6, his master shall bring him to the judges. He shall bring him to the doorpost, and his master shall put an awl through his ear and basically pierce his ear and mark him as property. And and he shall serve him forever. Now, it's the rules as you continue down to like verse 20. Oops, hang on. Yeah. If you go down to verse 20, if you beat your servant and he doesn't die within a day or two, there's no punishment. So there's a completely separate set of rules for non-Jewish slaves. And then there's a separate set of rules for Jewish slaves. And then the Bible specifically tells you how you can trick Jewish slaves into being your slave forever. So when somebody tells you this is about indentured servitude, it's not, but that's also immoral. When somebody tells you this is just debt slavery to pay off a debt, it's not, but that's also immoral. What this actually does is, instead of, it would be very easy, and God should know absolutely right off the bat, to tell everyone clearly, for if God can inspire someone to say that it is immoral to eat shrimp, then certainly God can inspire someone to say, thou shalt not own another human being as property. And yet if you go beyond Exodus to Leviticus and Deuteronomy, it specifically says that slaves, you shall buy your slaves from the heathen that surround you. They are your property. You can pass them on to your children. Now, I don't know about you, but I would go to your pastor and I would say, hi, will you be Matt Dillahunty's slave under the biblical laws for slavery? Because I bet the answer is no. And if the answer is no, then the question needs to be changed to, why is the Bible advocating for a clearly, grossly immoral position on whether or not you can own and beat human beings?
By the way, feel free to ask your pastor if he'd like to either call in, or we could set up a full-on debate on this very topic if he disagrees.
But yeah, you're being lied to.
Okay. I still disagree, but I don't mean to be annoying. But like,
Angel, but do you disagree on any grounds besides you firmly believe going in that your pastor is right, even though you've been shown why he's wrong? Because it sounds like you disagree purely as faith, that you have faith we're wrong, even though it was just explained to you with facts.
I'm just sorry. I just don't get how an all-loving God, someone who, died for our sins and has, created the earth, promotes slavery.
I agree. Angel, I agree. And the answer is, the Bible, the Old Testament, was not writing about an all-loving God. The all-loving God of the Old Testament and the New Testament don't exist. The people who wrote the books were writing out there are a bunch of different reasons they could have been, but certainly self-interest and retention of power are high up there on the list. And the reason why slavery was written about was because the people who had the power to write about it wanted to hold slaves, not because the Bible is written by or inspired by God.
But you just did something, Angel, where you said, hey, there's part of the Bible over here where it suggests that God is all loving and created the world and sacrificed himself to save us. And there's another part of the Bible over here that suggests that same being is okay with slavery. That doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to throw out the part about slavery and say that they got that wrong. What's your justification for throwing that part out instead of throwing out all the other part over here? You have no evidence that God is all loving. You have no evidence that God exists. You have no evidence that God sacrificed himself. Jesus didn't sacrifice himself. Even in the story, Jesus at most gave up a weekend and then got to continue being God. There was no sacrifice. There's no demonstration that there's anything to be saved to or saved from. You are taking the parts that feel good to you and prioritizing them and dismissing the parts that don't feel good to you, which I'll say is absolutely consistent with the answer you gave me about 10 minutes ago when you were talking about how it feels. The problem is the Bible is the only thing that you have to base the entirety of Christianity on. And if the Bible says you can keep slaves and never says thou shalt not keep slaves, what's your justification for being opposed to slavery? And meanwhile, there is zero good evidence that a God exists, that God sacrificed himself, but also that doesn't make any sense. If God wants to forgive us, why does he need to come down and do some blood magic ritual, come down, take human form, sacrifice himself to serve as a loophole for rules that he's in charge of? The system doesn't make any sense. And when it doesn't make any sense, the correct thing to do is to throw it all out until it does make sense. The correct thing is never to pick and choose the parts that feel good to you.
Okay. And I 100% understand what you're saying. So can we just go back to just like the slavery thing? So I know, my pastor said that it is kind of like a history book, and you oppose that and you take it literally. Can you tell me why you don't think it's like a history book?
No. Hang on.
I do think it's like a history book.
Yeah, a history of God, supposedly God's words. Let's say, Angel, it is a history book. In the chapter that Matt gave you, is it or is it not presenting that in history, God gave people methods of being slavers?
I thought, the verse is not about God. I just thought that this is how, people.
Have you read the Bible yet?
Yes, I have. And we discussed this in church, and he said, my pastor said, this is how it was back then. And
yeah.
Back then under God's command, correct?
Not under God's command, as in this is just how.
What's the justification? What is your pastor's justification? Because when we look at the Old Testament, the collection of the law and the prophets, etc., it isn't a history book in the sense that it's not reliable the way a good history book would be, but it is a historical chronicling of what Jews believed. And so if you're going to say that Jews got the wrong belief in Exodus 21 about slaves, how do you know that they got the right belief in Exodus about the 10 Commandments?
I didn't think about that.
In the New Testament, what does Jesus say about the Old Testament? About the laws that were written in the Old Testament, what does he say?
Well, we're taught to follow Jesus and the New Testament.
Right. What does Jesus say about the Old Testament, about the law and the prophets, if you believe in Exodus as actually being the book basically written by Moses, as most Christians do, or at least many do? It's in Matthew. Do you remember the chapter and verse? I think it's 5:17.
Yeah.
Okay, go to Matthew 5:17. Go read. Pull that up and read it out loud, would you please?
I don't have my Bible here handy. I was going to show you one thing. Exodus 21 has the law about slaves. If you turn back a single page to Exodus chapter 20, that's the 10 Commandments. It's a page. It's 26 verses, actually. It's 21 verses just to get to the bulk of the thing of the 10 Commandments. So in the exact same book, by presumably the exact same author, on one page, you have the 10 Commandments, which Louisiana is now requiring be posted in every school, and where Christian nationalists and Christian dominionists are trying to suggest that this is the foundation of all law, which is a damnable lie. But no, I don't think your pastor is going to say, oh, the Bible got the 10 Commandments wrong. But on the very next page is where the instructions are for how to treat your slaves, how to trick your slaves, how you can beat your slaves. How do you figure that in the same book, one page apart, the 10 Commandments are there, and that's incredibly important, and we got it definitely right, even though they're absurd. But on one page later about the slaves, we got that wrong. It doesn't make any sense.
Did you pull up 5:17?
Yep.
You want to read it out loud?
Do you not think that I have come to abolish the law or prophets? I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them.
Right. That's literally him talking about the thing you're saying that we can now ignore because that's just history. And yet Jesus is saying the Torah, the words of the prophets from the Torah, he isn't trying to get rid of. In other translations, not the, I guess it's not King James, it even says to not change one jot or one tittle.
It's the next verse.
Oh, is that the next verse? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 5:18. Not there to change one jot or tittle. The Torah as written, the Old Testament He's good with it. That's his law. That's his endorsement during the Sermon on the Mount. So Jesus doesn't get to ignore it, but you get to just ignore it because you say it's just a history book, despite he's calling it the words of the prophets.
And for the people who were shocked that I don't have a Bible right next to me, technically, I have two, but they're New Testaments. The other Bibles, we moved bookcases over to the spare room, and I moved my regular NIV that I keep handy here. But I always have a Bible. I just didn't have the New King James.
I know we've been talking for a while, so I hope I didn't I'm not boring you guys or disrespecting you guys.
Not bored at all.
No.
We'd kept going.
My biggest thing is that we should probably let you go. We've got other callers to get to.
Okay.
Take some time.
That's fine.
Think about this, put together a list of questions. But the big thing is the question I think you need to ask yourself most is, if one part of the Bible says something that I agree with, and another part of the Bible says something I disagree with, how do I tell which of those two parts is wrong and whether or not I'm wrong? Because with Exodus 20 being the 10 Commandments and Exodus 21 being, the one of many passages on the laws regarding slavery, I don't know what justification anybody has for suggesting, oh, well, thou shalt not kill. It got that right. But, and it got it right that if a man struggles with or fights with another man and a woman comes in and grabs him by the balls, then you're supposed to, cut her hand off. And I just did a video weirdly about bestiality. Probably just got us demonetized for merely uttering the word. Even though it's legal in 2 states, it's legal in West Virginia and New Mexico. But the Bible prescribes the death penalty as the penalty if anybody has sex with an animal. And it has a passage that says if a man lies with an animal, you're supposed to kill the man and the animal.
Yeah.
And if a woman lies with an animal, you're supposed to kill the woman and the animal. The Bible is so sexist that instead of saying if anyone lies with an animal, you're supposed to kill that person and the animal, that it has different, because everywhere else it has different rules for men and women. But because the rule's the same here, it had to list it twice. If a man has sex with an animal, you kill the man and the animal. And if a woman has sex with an animal, you kill the woman and the animal. That's how sexist the Bible already is. But at the end of the day, why the fuck are you killing an animal? At a minimum, that's the victim in a violation of consent with regard to bodily autonomy. What God could possibly want you to kill the animal that somebody had sex with? And why is this important enough to be included in the Bible twice at least? The things that the Bible is concerned with. Let's get the 10 Commandments out, and on the next page we'll talk about how we're going to treat our slaves and mistreat our slaves, and then a little further down the line we'll just anybody has sex with an animal, you're going to kill them, and fuck it, we'll kill the animal too. It's ridiculous. There's nobody who could read the Bible cover to cover without a bias and conclude that this was the work of an intelligent, wise being, or that it was representative of high thought on morality or any other subject. This is the scribblings of people trying to chronicle how their God was the better God than all these other ones, and how they were the protected special creation of a God. Not that God loves everybody. God doesn't love everybody. God picked the Jews. God created Adam and Eve and it went wrong. The entire Old Testament is a chronicle of it going wrong for God over and over again, and how the Jews are disobedient. As my last thought here, Angel, consider the story of the Exodus. I've given this example before. Let's imagine that you're with a friend who's pregnant, and you're in a foreign country where you don't speak the language, and your friend goes into labor, and you hit your knees and you pray for God to help you out. And all of a sudden, a ball of fire appears in front of you, and you feel compelled to follow it. and you help your friend and you follow the ball of fire and it leads you over to a car that is running and has the doors open and the keys in it. And you get you and your friend in the car and the ball of light starts going down the highway. And as it goes, all of the other cars get off the highway to get out of your way. And that ball of light leads you directly to a hospital. You witness all of that. Is there anything that could ever happen for the rest of your life that would convince you to worship some other God?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. I really, really don't know.
I don't either. I think that it would be impossible, and yet the Bible would have you believe that the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, something that historically we are confident never happened. There is not evidence for it at all, but that they were led out by a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. They were fed manna from heaven. They parted the Red Sea and walked across on dry land. They traveled on, fed manna from heaven. Moses disappears for a few days to go have a conference with God. And when he comes down, they are already crafting a golden calf to have a new God to worship. What does that tell you about these people? It tells you that they are fickle and that they think they can manufacture their own God. When the God that they worshiped was doing great things for them, hey, we're going to stick with this God. We're this God's chosen people. And the second things got a little hairy, they're like, fuck that God. Let's make a new God. We'll make a golden calf. These are the people whose story is being told in the Old Testament. And it is embarrassing to think that otherwise intelligent people can look at this and say, yep, I see why God picked those people. This isn't a comedy of failures. This is a glorious treatise on God and the world. It's a dark comedy of errors that is sexist, that has supported racism and slavery. It is homophobic. There's nothing there about equality. And the Bible's view on love is something that I don't recognize. If I love someone, whether they love me back isn't going to determine what I think of them. It may determine whether or not I engage with them. What kind of parent creates a torture chamber in their basement, sticks a note on the fridge that says, do all your chores or I'll torture you forever in the basement, and then leaves and never interacts with anyone again? Christianity is absurd and immoral, and the Bible is the problem with it. And it does, while it doesn't necessarily create racism, it does provide a system that be complicit with atheism, or be complicit with racism and hide the consequences of racism. But anyway, that's a ton, Angel. We had 45-minute call with you where we covered incredible ground, and I don't want to, it's probably already overwhelming. Just take some time and think, and
go back and watch
call
the
back
call
if you
again.
come up with better answers.
Yeah, go back and watch the call again, because there were other challenges in there that I think would be great for you to think about, like when we were talking about you versus Westboro and exclusive good reasons. Because at the end of the day, the thing you need to be figuring out is, do you have a good reason to believe it's literally true? So go back and watch, and definitely call back.
Okay. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thanks, Angel.
Yep. Thanks, Angel. By the way, Jimmy, you're going to want to go to a one-up of you at the start of this next call, because I'm going to also slip away for a half a second here.
Yeah, I can do that. Here we go. Oh, I did it right the first time this time. Let's see. I'm going to take a quick... We've got some other theists lined up, but because I like to have Matt back for the theists, I'm going to quickly take one of the atheists who's been waiting 2 hours anyway. So, Ransom, you're on the line right now with just Jimmy. How are you, Ransom?
Oh, hey. How's it going?
It's going all right. How you doing?
Hey. Oh, okay.
All right. Well, what's your question?
Well, I was, I guess I'm pretty newly deconstructed. Like, just a couple months ago, I was playing guitar as like the praise lead, worship leader in our church. But I was kind of I guess I'd heard some stories on this show, people who have been in like really like areas where there's a lot of just Christian pressure on all sides, and I guess I was kind of just wanting to go through that of mine. But
yeah, so basically it seems like, also based on the notes, that you're basically trying to ask how to basically live now in a situation where you are surrounded by religious people, red-ring people, and you are now finding yourself not agreeing with them in a lot of stuff. Is that basically the question?
yeah, and there's like I mean, it's a lot more like mostly family,
Yeah.
especially like troubles with, like, I've got a fairly young son, and my wife's pretty religious, my family's pretty religious, and there's a lot of like disagreement with that, you know.
Yeah, so for that, I'd probably recommend, and I hate to say this, but I don't know that Matt or I are going to have, not that we won't have some generic advice to give you, but neither of us have life experience to tell you how to raise a child with a wife who is, neither of us have children, neither of us have religious wives. However, there are different shows across this channel, and I think there are other people who could answer it better. The number one advice to anybody in a situation like yours that I always have is it's imperative you start expanding your community. You need people to talk to. You need your social group to expand in a way, and you may even just find the advice within there, because there's certainly lots and lots of people who used to be religious who aren't. Weirdly, even though I don't think you were Mormon, especially if you were playing a guitar in a church, that's not allowed, not at least on Sundays during service. But you might even go search the r/x Mormon Reddit, because there's a lot of people who one parent leaves before the other, talking about different things they do. And the general advice isn't necessarily going to be Mormon specific, but so you might check that out. But expanding your community to include some other non-religious people is going to be imperative to get started.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I guess I wasn't really looking for advice. I'd heard some stories on here of just people sharing like their struggles, and so I was just, I guess, wanting to get mine out there a little bit. But
gotcha. Yeah, generally we're a Q&A show. While some people make the mistake, usually we filter that out, and we don't. We're definitely not an open mic or anything. We're not doing fast and testimony. Meaning.
That's fair. That's fair.
I gotcha. All right, well, Ransom, if that's it, if you got a question, we can take it. Otherwise, we'll just move on.
I did have one, I guess, just like on the more, I didn't know if this was more of like it was one of the, I had a bunch of reasons when I was going through with my pastor and other people, you know, when I was going through my deconstruction, becoming atheist. There's all these questions I couldn't answer. I used to be like a guy who was like, you know, I believed in evolution. I thought like homosexuality, everything was completely fine, even though everyone else like disagreed with it. But I didn't know if this was a common thought, but I'd kind of gone back on that and decided that evolution like was still right, but kind of disproves the soul, even though there's no scientific proof. But they're like, if people evolve slowly over time, like if you just go back and back and back and back and back, then why wouldn't, you know, bacteria and viruses and lizards and giraffes all have souls? Like, how do you make the distinction between a human and a human and a human and, like, you know, our ancestors and stuff? And so that kind of just made it sound like nonsense to me. But I don't know what your thoughts on that were.
I can see it's usually a different, there's usually a different approach to, I think, the question you're trying to do, which is where people will say, like, yes, I believe in evolution, but Adam and Eve were the first things born that God put souls into, is one of the versions of that argument I've heard. But it would make it very arbitrary that you would have millions of generations of higher intelligence humans and species that preceded them that didn't have it, and arbitrarily the Homo sapiens that gave birth to the Homo sapiens Adam and Eve were the ones that got the souls. That's pretty dumb. But so I guess I can see where you're going with it, but I wouldn't necessarily call that a disproof of the soul, because there might be some people who are like, maybe God did give bacteria souls. And then what do you do?
Sure, yeah. I guess it's really frustrating because I've been talking to so many people, and most of the people around here are like, well, we do believe in evolution, But then you talk to them and they're like, they just believe microevolution. They believe that God created kinds, or like they believe everything in evolution happened, but people are separate. We're special.
Right, which we
We're
know is
different,
not true.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
But
Thanks, Ransom.
yeah. Have a good one, man.
Best of luck. Let's go to Joseph in Illinois. Joseph, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt. Joseph in Illinois, you're on the line. Joseph, we cannot hear you at the moment. We will return you to the queue and try you again at some point. Probably. Let's go to Jeffrey in Texas. Jeffrey in Texas, you are on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Hey, Jimmy. Hey, Matt. Y'all have heard from me before. I've called like a year ago or so. I watch your show off and on. But anyways, I had a question. Like, can somebody, and I put deist because I guess that would be the most accurate thing that I'm dealing with right now, is having a personal view on God, but not necessarily biblical or any other religious-based ideology.
Sure.
What is y'all's input on that?
Anybody can believe in anything for any number of reasons. So somebody needs to tell me what they believe and why they believe it.
Yeah.
So if somebody has some personal justification for believing in a God that's not part of a recognized religion, I just want to know what the reason is. And if it's a good one, I'll agree with them. And if it's not, then I won't.
I guess that's why it's personal, but if
it's not the way reality works.
I guess.
No. If they believe in a God that only exists for them, I have zero. That's absurd. So if they believe in a God that also exists for me, then there should be reasons that should convince me as well.
I understand that. So just to make it personal, I think because I dealt with a lot of people that had passed away, and then like 2 years ago, I think I called in and I said my brother had passed away. So just from that point, before my brother passed away, I was dabbling in atheism and just learning about science and evolution and just the ideas of morality and all these other things. And I just seem to struggle a lot with not having rules. I want to say it like that because I know they say, morals are subjective rather than objective. So I just feel like I believe in a personal God, not necessarily religiously or anything like that, but just in the idea that I can want to believe that there's an objective morality out there. I know that you said earlier that's not how reality works, but I guess
Jeffrey,
that's why in my mind, makes
hang
sense.
on, you're kind of going on, and so I'm just going to pop in here because you've already made some claims, and they're ones that we should address. First thing you should know is you're not a deist, you're a theist if you believe in a personal God. Deism is a very impersonal God. There wouldn't be an objective morality, for example, because a deistic God would not give a shit what humans are doing on the planet or pay any attention to them. You would be a theist if you believe in a personal God. Regarding this, because I want there to be an objective moral giver. That's the thing you should be addressing. You wanting it won't make it true or not. And it's not as though there isn't sufficient foundation for the things. It's not even that you want an objective moral code. It's that you want an objective reason. You think you want an objective reason for things that you think are obviously immoral to be immoral because somehow you find subjectivity insufficient when it isn't insufficient. You're talking about, I want there to be a God who says you shouldn't steal from me because that feels more good than just arbitrarily, but it's not arbitrary. Jeffrey, when you see somebody sad, does it sometimes make you sad?
Yeah, of course.
When you see somebody hurt, does it sometimes make you feel bad that they are hurt?
Yeah, of course.
So the empathy part of your brain is working perfectly fine. And we've evolved empathy as a part of our brains, as a part of our psychology, because it actually helps our species survive. If I am concerned about the person with a broken leg because I can tell it sucks to have a broken leg, and if I had a broken leg, I would want people to help me recover from the broken leg, that species is going to survive better because you aren't going to die of a broken leg. And so that, combined with the fact that we now have advanced reasoning, our prefrontal cortex has grown so much bigger and more complex and more sufficiently useful than any other species we know of. We can now take empathy and reason and do both at the same time and create a society of, I don't want to be murdered, so we shouldn't murder, which, by the way, is one of the earliest things humans with written word documented. It was like one of the, hey, we're writing now. Let's write, don't kill each other. Now, other things they got wrong. Eye for an eye doesn't make a whole lot of sense, despite the fact that there's elements of that in like the Code of Hammurabi, but whatever. This is where their reasoning failed. And as you look throughout history, you want to say, I want there to be an objective lawgiver because you have laws you want everyone to adhere to with this giant justification. But no, Jeffrey, forgive me. Let me finish. Let me finish. We're probably going to disagree on whether that's what motivates you or not, but it doesn't make sense without it. But as you look through history, if this objective lawgiver existed and somebody like you or any human had access to it, you would see consistency in morality. But throughout history, do we see consistency in morality? Or do we recognize that right now, the best moral systems that have ever existed are existing in their best form so far and are getting better and have the most adherence to those. And in the past, things were worse. And that virtually every country, every group of people has some history of colonialism, of slavery, of these terrible things, and that as time gets better, clearly there's not a set objective code, because why would humanity be so far now from what they used to be like? Not to say that we're perfect now, only better than we've ever been, not necessarily a super high bar. Jeffrey, the evolution of our morals points to that there is no objective lawgiver. And yet you think you have access to one.
No, not even, no. I disagree. I'm just basically saying, I'm not saying that I believe that there is an objective lawgiver and
I believe that is what you said.
A lot of people. No, I said I want to believe that there is.
And that was your justification.
Call us back when you actually fucking believe something, because this isn't the call in and tell us what you want to believe show.
This was when you were sharing your justification for your belief in a personal God.
My opinion is, if you called in to tell me what you want to believe, I don't give a shit.
Do you
believe? There are real issues. There are real issues where real people believe stuff and it's impacting our lives. I don't care what you want to believe, Jeffrey.
Well, I like going back to the empathy thing. I don't think I can break somebody down and say that there is nothing for you there to be objective about, because it's all subjective. Like you said earlier, you break a leg and you hurt somebody and somebody gets hurt, you're going to empathize with them. Why empathize?
It's not all subjective. You're using, Jeffrey, you're using all the language wrong. Morality is situational, but we can make objective assessments with regard to goals. Once you have established a set of goals and principles, there are objective facts about reality that are non-subjective. The goals may ultimately be subjective. Do you care about your well-being? Do you care about other people's well-beings? If the answer to both of those is yes, then congratulations. You and I both care about our own well-being, and we both care about the well-being of other people. And that's all we need subjectively to then be able to make objective assessments of actions with respect to their consequences.
I agree. I just want to say that I can't go out and tell people like don't believe in God, because I kind of went through that and it's not a good feeling.
Jeffrey,
and that's
did anybody say that you need to go out and tell people don't believe in God? Do I sit here and tell people don't believe in God?
You imply it a lot.
Oh, fucking bullshit.
Jeffrey,
This is the laziest thinking I've had to deal with today. What I say is that I am still unconvinced that there is a God. And in 2 decades of sitting here asking people to tell me what they believe and why, nobody has been able to give me a good reason to believe in that. I am sitting here as a critical thinker and skeptic, pointing to the fact that the God beliefs are not supported by sufficient evidence to warrant belief. Now, if the conclusion then is you should not believe something if there's not good reason, that's true. But that's not the same as merely, well, I can't run around telling people don't believe in God. Well, if you're going to oversimplify everything down, not only do I not give a fuck about what you want to believe, I don't give a fuck about what you think. If you're just going to do the McNuggets of thought and then dunk them in barbecue sauce and stick them up your ass, you're doing it wrong.
Jeffrey, I have a question for you. How many phone calls did we make out today? Not how many calls did we receive. How many did we make?
I'm not how much you received today?
No. I'm not asking you how many calls we've received today. How many calls did Matt and I make? Outgoing calls to people.
Oh, none.
How many people did we force to watch our video?
None.
Right. So your metaphor of going out and telling people, we don't go out and do shit. Even if you were right that we on here come to ever say, guys, don't believe in God, which we don't say it in those words. But if you want to say that's the implication, going out and telling people, we literally have conversations with people who come to us for it. We literally are playing videos for people who are electing to watch the stuff. We're not missionaries. We don't go door to door. We don't tell anybody to do anything who isn't asking us for our thoughts and our opinions on these things. And so the implication of that you need to now go out and spread the word. And by the way, I'm not necessarily even opposed to some forms of that. But even then, it's still consensual. When Anthony Magnabosco goes and sets up at a park and does a street epistemology thing with people on the trail, he asks them if they want to talk about the stuff. It is not a matter of imposing anything anywhere. It's entirely voluntary. But frankly, Jeffrey, if you got into, let's say, a timeshare scam, and you found out it was a scam and they stole your money and you found out their tactics, nobody would accuse you of being a sack of shit if you went out of your way to try to stop other people for falling for the same scam. But guess what?
I can't go out and tell other people not to do heroin.
Right. I fell for the religion scam. From a child, I don't really doubt, I don't blame myself very much, but I did. And now one of my greatest motivations in life, and one of the activism I feel the best about, is to help other people not fall for that scam or make their way from that scam. So Jeff, I don't give a fuck if you want to go tell other people not to believe in God, but we've already shown you don't have a good reason to, and you certainly shouldn't be using your desire, your wish to believe in God to affirm other people's faith when faith right now is fucking ruining the United States. The Christian nationalist movement, the unchallenged religious movement of these people who close their ears and won't listen to people like us and won't have discussions with people like us. Those people are ruining the country, and not to mention the state you also live in with Matt and I.
I know, I agree.
Well, then don't say such condescending bullshit when you call in.
I'm not trying to be condescending.
Let me
I
try
just feel
something.
like y'all are punching down on me a little bit.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Well, call me back. Call me back when you actually want to hear what I think and aren't,
No.
little
I'm
baby
sorry.
about
No,
it.
I'm just making a comment. No, I'm just making a comment. I'm just saying.
We're punching down on you. We're punching down on you. That's so unfair.
I'm not saying that. I mean, I'm not.
You literally fucking said that. How dare you tell me you're not saying that? You literally fucking said that.
No.
Yes. You literally fucking said that it's like we're punching down on you. Why are you lying now?
I'm not lying. I said that, but I'd retract my statement.
You didn't say you retracted it until this very fucking second. Until a minute ago, you said you didn't fucking say it, which means you were lying, doesn't it?
I was lying.
Yeah. So when I asked why are you, when I asked why, shut up. When I asked why are you lying, why did you say you weren't?
I said I just, because I should have said I retracted my statement first.
You should have said, I don't give a shit what you should have said. I asked, why did you say it? Why did you fucking lie?
I lied. I was put in the moment. I lied.
All right, Jeffrey, call back when you can advocate for what you believe and when you know what it is you believe and what good reasons you have for it. Otherwise, there's no point in continuing this. This makes no sense. Goodbye, Jeffrey.
It's a personal thing.
Yeah, and that's not good enough.
I personally don't care for fucking liars.
Right. That's a personal, that's literally all of them, Jeffrey. And I assume you don't like, let's just go with the most extreme we can think of. I assume you don't like Islamic terrorists, somebody who straps on a vest and kills people. Well, guess what? They believe for personal reasons too. Personal reasons are not an adequate defense of that. And if you can't justify, if you can't tell them, I don't believe for just simply personal reasons, if you have the same foundation as them, you do not have a basis upon which you can tell them they're wrong and you're right. Goodbye, Jeffrey.
I don't do well with people who blatantly lie to my face. I get it. Jeffrey was absolutely cornered and flailing. And it probably would have been better if Jeffrey just stopped a little before that. One of the questions, early on, because he was very adamant and clear that he wants to believe there's an objective foundation in morality. Well, you might want to believe that there's free will. You might want to believe that the COVID test you just took is 100% accurate. But what you want to believe and what's reasonable to believe and what's true may in fact be very different things. And so if I was to tell Jeffrey, I want to believe that this COVID test I just took is 100% accurate. Do you think that's a good reason to be convinced that it's accurate? His answer should have been no. Everybody's answer should be no. If you're going to tell me that you believe for bad reasons, I'm going to say those are bad reasons. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think you should believe for those reasons. If you come back with better reasons, I will agree with you. But it's not, to phrase this as well, I don't want to tell people not to believe in God. You don't need to tell people shit, Jeffrey. You should shut your pie hole and just read and learn for the next 2 years, because you're not ready to have these conversations with people. Nobody's asking or expecting you to run around telling people not to believe in God. But maybe when you get enough knowledge and understanding of what you actually believe and why you believe it and what is reasonable to believe, then you could say, when you're going across somebody who says, wow, I think there's free will, objective morality, you can say, I'm not convinced of that. What's your justification for believing those things? Let's have a discussion about it. Because that's what we do.
I actually met someone in Big Screen last night who said that my advice of when you're fresh out and you're dying to debate because you're angry, instead shut up for a while and just listen and hear other people debate and learn how to. I met someone last night who said that ended up being really good advice for him because he almost did it and then he got intercepted by our show and took the advice. That was nice. It's nice to hear.
I am both excited and potentially concerned about the next call, but we'll see.
Let's do it. Randy in Georgia, you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt. Randy, you're on the line. Hey, Randy.
Good afternoon.
Hi there.
All right. So, my name's Randall Stroud, and I've been listening to your show since 2011, and I've been a believer this entire time, but I think that people like you are very important for people to come to things on their own, and they have to hear all sides. So I do think that you're playing a part in the overall discussion, and I'm not intimidated to have this big conversation, but I want to start off asking, what is the baseline of truth? When I first called in, I was asked, what are my pronouns? So I'm assuming that you two believe that, that men can give birth, and you were probably on the side that, that you probably supported.
Okay, hang on, Randy. Hang on, Randy, because we're not going to let you gish gallop and just go do a bunch of points.
That's the wildest thing.
Right.
Randy just said that we probably believe men can give birth. The answer is yes. And we probably supported vaccine mandates. Randy, what conspiracy nonsense shit has been shoveled into your head where you call in to talk about miracles justifying why you're a theist and then immediately start by suggesting two completely unrelated things that aren't even tied together?
Right, Randy. Actually,
they are.
Hang on, Randy.
They are tied
Randy,
together.
hang on.
No, sir. Whether or not a man can give birth and whether or not a vaccine mandate is warranted are two completely unrelated topics.
Randy, but also you're from the onset, your presumption or whatever. We're on a call-in show, Randy. Are you visible on the screen right now, or are you calling invisibly from the phone?
My voice is audible to you.
Right, but you can't see.
I'm a real person. I'm not an AI.
I know that, Randy. I know that. You only need to answer the questions I'm asking, not presume any others. Is Randy a name that is only used for men, or is it a universal? Is it a unisex name?
Listen,
Randy,
we're
answer the question.
Here.
Answer the fucking question. Is the name Randy?
Wow, calm down.
Randy,
anger is a feminine.
Randy, shut the fuck up.
I'm putting you on mute. Nobody can hear you. Listen to Jimmy, and then you get back on and you can answer the question.
It's a yes or no question. No, it's not yes or no. Well, I'll make it yes or no. Can Randy, the name Randy, be used for more than just men? Yes or no?
I mean, you can call someone a car.
Randy, is the name Randy
you can do
used for
you
people?
Want.
That's not the question, Randy.
Wow.
You need to just follow, or we're not going to do this. If you are not going to follow the line of questioning, because I'm going to reveal to you why your pronoun point was stupid, if you will get through the questions, and you'll agree that you were wrong if you are intellectually honest, even if you don't believe trans people are valid, even if you don't believe a single thing that we believe about gender, even if you don't believe any of that, you are going to see that your reasoning about your pronoun point is flawed. So Randy, you've already conceded, you're on the phone, you're not on video. Now, is the name Randy sometimes used for people other than men?
Yeah, sure.
Great. No, don't need you to keep moving. Don't need you to keep going, Randy. Randy, is it possible to tell a person's gender every time over the phone, or are there in fact some women who are deep voiced and some men who have a high voice? Is it true that sometimes you make a mistake and assume a person's gender, even if you don't believe in the trans stuff, even if you don't think trans people exist, just regular, good old-fashioned cisgender, although I'm sure you won't use that, Americans, them normal ones, as you people would call it, even if that's all you believe in, is it true you can mistake a person's...
Why didn't you just ask me if I was a mister or a man? Made it simple.
Why?
Because the correct question is, what pronouns would you prefer?
Exactly.
Because if I ask whether you're a mister, shut up. Shut your fucking pie hole, you ignorant fucking bigot. You refuse to answer the question you were asked. You are playing around. I'm going to mute you. Nobody's going to hear a word you fucking say. We are trying to teach you something, but it's becoming very clear you don't give a fuck about learning, which is probably why you're a fucking ignorant bigot. The question was, and let me just do it all. Jimmy, let's do this, and we'll bring Randy in later. I'll play Randy.
Yeah.
Start with the name thing. I will answer the questions for Randy because Randy's fucking incompetent.
Are there times women are named Randy?
Yes. Sometimes it's spelled with an I, but yes, both of them, yes.
Yeah. On the phone, is it possible to tell if a person is a man or a woman?
Not all the time. You may well get it wrong.
So wouldn't it make sense if a person were to call in to a show where there is a chat and comment section with a third person, where third person pronouns are going to be used a lot, to help guide, not you or I, not the host and not the caller, but to help the guides who are talking in third person to get the gender of the person correct by what they want to be called.
So you're asking me if it makes sense to ask people what their preference is?
Yes.
For pronouns?
Yes.
Yes, that makes perfect sense.
Yes. Even if you don't believe in shit, Randy, this is what we should do. And it's why I'm calling you Randy instead of Cuntface McCunterson, which sounds more right to me. It's what I feel fits you more, but you identify as Randy, so I'm going to call you that. Unless you're saying you actually also identify as a cunt face, in which case I will call you that, but out of respect, I'll stick with Randy.
Randy, I have one question for you. Which one of my answers was incorrect?
That men can give birth.
No. To what Jimmy just said, first of all, men can in fact give birth, but where I was playing you and I gave the answers to Jimmy, I want you to tell me which of my answers there that I was answering as you was incorrect.
Say that
That's
one more
right.
time. You're breaking up.
No, I'm not
Sorry,
breaking up. You're not fucking sorry. I don't believe a thing you say. When Jimmy and I were just doing this question and answer thing where I was answering as if I were you, which of the answers that I gave was incorrect?
But if you can't figure out whether or not a man can give birth, you don't have any.
Randy, I've muted you. I'm going to unmute you and I'm going to ask you one more time. Which of the answers that I gave was incorrect? Last chance.
That's not the issue that we were debating.
It is the issue, and we no longer need you to do a show. We didn't need you to have a conversation about pronouns. We don't need you to continue the conversation about pronouns. Randy, you are irrelevant to anything and everyone. First of all, men can, in fact, give birth. Dr. Ben is a man who is on the Transatlantic Call-In show, a doctor and a man who may or may not have a womb. There are plenty of trans men who have the equipment that allows one to become pregnant and give birth. You are operating with a very narrow view where your kindergarten view of biological sex is overriding the actual view that we're discussing about gender and gender identity and gender roles. So when we ask someone, what are your preferred pronouns? We're not saying, what are your chromosomes? We're not saying, what are your secondary sexual traits? We're not saying, do you like to have sex with men or women or other? All we're saying is, when someone talks about you, would you prefer that they referred to you as he or she or they or something else? It is a respectful question to say, when we talk about you, how would you prefer we talk about you? But Randy, man, since you gave man as your pronouns, even though man isn't a pronoun,
literally
you
not.
backward jackass.
Yeah.
I no longer care what your preference is. From now on, the only reason I'm not going to refer to Randy as she is because I find it monumentally disrespectful to everybody else who actually understands that when you ask someone what their preferred pronouns are, you're not asking them to make a statement about whether they're cis or trans. You're not asking them to make a statement about their sexuality. You're not asking them to make a statement about their fucking politics. It is like, hey, what is your name? Do you have a name that you'd rather be called? I didn't ask what's on your fucking birth certificate. I didn't ask what planet you're from. But merely asking someone, which pronouns do you prefer, is evidently so triggering to the bigoted little snowflake bitches like Jeffrey. It's just a bridge too far. And so Jeffrey called in to talk about miracles and how, as a gunshot survivor, miracles somehow prove God. And you know what? We didn't get to any of it because Jeffrey is so absolutely terrified of a world where somebody might want to refer to them using a pronoun. I don't know why, Jeffrey. You sound like you were fucking old enough to have watched Schoolhouse Rock with me. I got a friend named Rufus Xavier Sarsaparilla. Go watch it. It's a pronoun song. It'll teach you something. Meanwhile, I would love to have Jeffrey actually call in and explain how he witnessed or experienced a miracle, how he knows that it's a miracle, and how he knows that the cause or best explanation of this miracle is the God that he believes in. That would be a worthwhile call. But Jeffrey's a fragile little bitch who can't get past being asked what pronouns he prefers. So Jeffrey doesn't get to play. And I don't need you to do a show, Jeffrey. I can teach everybody watching this show and not only not lose viewers, but have viewers go up for what I just did to you. Owned you like a biblical fucking slave. We're going to cross 3,000 viewers as I sit here and school your ignorant, bigoted ass on pronouns because you're so fucking fragile, you couldn't even get to the part where you were wanting to demonstrate that a God exists. How sad it is that you are the representative of any God belief. That instead of coming in to witness on behalf of Jesus or Allah or whatever else, you got so tripped up by being asked what your pronouns are that you couldn't do a fucking thing. You are the weakest link. Your brain is inferior. Your moral code is inferior. You are a fragile little bitch that should not be calling me. We didn't cross 3,000, but I figured if I amped it up a little bit, we might.
Well,
really
you might have had some transphobes in the chat who were like, "Oh shit, I got to leave right now," so they don't get it.
I got to log off, so it looks like they lost somebody.
Yeah, I also forgive me. What was his name?
Ooh.
Randy. Forgive me, Randy, for not trusting your ability to identify genders when you can't identify yes or no questions. Seems like we set the bar real low. It is very funny though. I'm going to come in and I'm going to say
there's somebody in chat named Joseph Smith. There's somebody in chat named Joseph Smith who says that I'm pulling a Biden now. Joseph, I'd like you to call in and explain what you meant before you say anything else in chat again ever.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know what pulling a Biden means. Does Biden lecture people who are too fragile to actually get to the point of the discussion without giving their pronouns?
It's possible he's watching the beginning of the show and is just referring to you telling everyone you have a cold. I feel like that's my best charity interpretation.
That could be.
Yeah. All right. We're going to talk to Floren in Romania. I did open up some lines because we have a little bit of time if a theist wants to call in before the show's over. Floren in Romania, you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
Hello.
Oh,
Can you hear me okay?
I do.
We hear you, Floren. Welcome.
First thing I wanted to say is that English is not my first language, so if there's a problem, we can solve it together. Okay?
I bet your English is going to be better than the last callers, and I bet your point will be better than the last callers, so you're just fine.
I wouldn't feel so proud. The bar is very low, I guess. I'm talking about the ever-growing influence.
One quick thing. I accidentally said Jeffrey a couple times when I meant Randy, and somebody in chat commented on it. Yes, my apologies. I was in fact talking about Randy and not Jeffrey. Please continue, Floren.
Okay. There is a question that I have to ask you, asking for some advice, but I would like to have 2 to 3 minutes to talk about a bit about the background in Romanian society right now.
We'll give you 2.
So, okay, I'll speak faster then. Romania is a 70% Eastern Orthodox country. There is a clear separation between state and church, but past years there's ever-growing influence of evangelical Christians in an American model, I would say. Right now there's no very clear lobby, but I fear that we are getting there and they might dictate government policies in the future. And this is what I personally want to avoid. Question is, there's a lot of money pushed in. There are a lot of starting billboards and everything, and I fear that there will be the case where these groups will start lobbying the government. What can be done? This is my question.
It's like when people call and ask, how do we stop our parents from being religious, to the two of us who have failed to stop our parents from being religious.
Yeah.
Floren, when you find out, you call back so we can do it to America, because so far we've failed to stop America from falling down the exact same path you're describing.
I have the same answer.
Maybe if you are, sorry, maybe if you're born in the 1800s, you would have the answer to cut it at the beginning.
I can tell you what I wish society looked like and what I would advocate for. I don't know, Floren, like start a YouTube call-in show and debate people on the political stuff. That might help some. I don't know how achievable that is. I just don't have, I can tell you all the ways in which I wish it was different, but I don't have an answer of how to stop it. Because right now, I would even say I am often spending days melancholy and discouraged at how unstoppable it has felt the last, we'll say, 8 years or so.
Okay, I get you. So I guess it would be one of the shortest calls that you have then.
I'm trying to think of anything like useful to, don't, but it's all going to seem kind of condescending because it's all common sense. Like vote, vote, definitely go vote.
Yeah. I don't know enough about Romania to even know what's going to be effective.
I don't even know if you can vote
at all.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, good. That's good.
We are a democracy.
I thought so, but sometimes that doesn't matter. Again, America.
Yeah, but it's still a choice by the people. Even if there's propaganda, there's brainwashing, the choice remains.
Sure. In America, if you meet a certain minimum standard of living, you probably have the choice. And if you're below it, you may not have the choice. There's a lot of people who are systematically excluded from being able to vote in our country.
Yes, that's actually sad.
Yeah.
Okay. I will then just say that I think what you're doing is great, even though it's kind of a Sisyphus work.
Yes,
but it has to be done.
What was the word?
And first of all,
Sisyphus.
Sisyphusian. It's the guy pushing the rock up the hill. It's his effort. So first of all, not only is your English better, but your understanding of concepts and references is better than our English-based college. Floren, I don't want to leave you without any suggestion. So I would look to at least start with, and I'm not recommending this organization. This is not just a recommendation because I know they've had problems in the past. I don't know what their current state is. I don't know whether they're filled with good people working for stuff or whatever else. But I would look into Atheist Alliance International to see if they are monitoring what's going on in your area and if they have recommendations of groups and organizations you can potentially work with to combat, the encroaching kind of Christian nationalism type thing that is getting its tendrils into your area. So I would try with potentially Atheist Alliance International, and at a minimum, you could also reach out to, actually one of the other organizations I was going to recommend, I can't recommend right now. So yeah, I would start with that one and see if you get any kind of answer at all. But definitely, whether you get an answer from them or anybody else, you're in a position where it might be, and I hate to do this to you, it might be up to you to start a grassroots movement or find one to join where there are message boards and other things where the key, I would think, is to say, I'm afraid that our country is going to end up looking like the United States, the worst elements of the United States in the near future. And I would like to find other people who would like to work with me to stop that. Because I think right now, using the United States as an example of negative progress on social issues and social justice, it's just obvious. We are going backward on that front.
Okay, thank you. I wrote it down. And in the end, just 1 minute that I want to say. I wish
Sure.
you all had, you two had my mother as a mother, because my mother was a very, very religious person. She never asked me if I want to attend church with her as a child. And the first real discussion that I had with her about her religiosity and everything was when I was 15 or 16, and her answer was, you needed, I have two other siblings. She did the same with the three of us. You needed to grow up and make up your mind by yourself. If a mother asks a 5-year-old, do you want to go to church with me? The answer will be 100% yes. She never did that. She said she wanted to wait until we make up our own minds. And if we want to join, that's okay. If not, that's okay as well.
Yeah, I got very little negative to say about that. I mean, I would prefer someone who didn't do that also as a believer, because I still think there's some potential influence there. But the way you describe your mother is at least vastly superior to most of the mothers that I would have to interact with, for sure, including my own.
Okay. Thank you very much for taking my call. It's already
thanks, Floren.
midnight here, so I go to sleep and we should work.
And please call back and check in if you find an organization, if you want to spread information about organizations in Romania. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I wrote down the Atheists Alliance International. We check up with them, maybe do more research on the local market, let's call it like that. And I might come back in a few months with an update.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for taking my call. Goodbye.
Bye, Floren.
My pleasure, and thank you for your patience. Floren waited 2.5 hours on hold
for no good answer.
And it is an incredibly frustrating call, because the point that Jimmy made, which I was just nodding because, so Jimmy and I, we definitely agree on a bunch of stuff, and there are times when we're going to have virtually the same thought. And as Jimmy started talking about it, I was like, yes, that's exactly. Oh my gosh, yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking. How frustrating is it when somebody calls you to answer the question, how do you fix this problem, when you've spent every fucking day trying to fix that problem in your own life for 20 years? And God, I wish I had a better answer.
I'm trying to feature on here because we have a few extra minutes, but I don't think anybody's figuring out how to work it. I'm going to try it again here. I'm going to see. I thought I had created a box that's similar to a poll where people could submit questions. I do know there was at least one question in Super Chats. I'm always finding out something I thought was true wasn't. It happens so often that it's very difficult to speak confidently about almost anything. How do you deal with this yourselves? I think I try to just speak carefully. If I think I'm in one of those zones and recognize that I don't have necessarily, I'll use language like, if I'm remembering such and such correctly, blah, 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 blah. But we have supercomputers in our pockets, and I find that often the easiest thing to do if you're pretty sure you have something right, one of the easiest things to do is to start to look it up as you can do it pretty much live at the same time. Let me see if, let me try and make a new box and see if this works. 'Cause I've actually never used this Q&A function before.
I don't think Classy has much confidence in you. This says ask something. Whoops. When I went to click it. Oh. So there's my question. It says something went wrong. Please try again.
Well, this doesn't work. Yeah, I got that same thing. All right, well, never mind. I guess if you want to see if you can get a super chat in the next couple moments, we'll still do that one. But the Q&A thing is broken. Great job, YouTube, getting those features out at the height of their popularity and efficiency.
I could just read some here. I'm pretty good at monitoring chat. I can actually read stuff on. They'll get it about 30 seconds late. So Classy was right that the question thing didn't work out. Carl said, Matt, I hope you feel better after all these shitty calls. These weren't, I don't want people to get the wrong impression. I don't know. I mean, apart from the obvious bigot that we just hung up on, I don't think any of the calls were shitty, even if they ended up being, problematic. I genuinely really enjoyed most of the calls, because even with someone like Randy, who we have to put in preschool mode and turn it on to we're going to ask you yes or no questions now. And if you fail to answer the yes or no questions, then mommy and daddy are going to stand here and we're going to act out a morality play for you. And Jimmy's going to play Jimmy and I'm going to play you. And Jimmy will ask me questions and I'm going to answer like a reasonable fucking person who isn't trying to avoid and misrepresent the issue. As I've said before on this show, listen to what they do not answer. This goes for, go back and watch the debate from Thursday. Listen to what Trump didn't answer, what he deflected on, how they had to ask him multiple times, will you right now declare that you will accept the results of the election? Well, I can't do the Trump thing. Jimmy can do it. But it's
if it is a free and fair election, I will accept it. But when I will have to look at it, it has to be free and fair election. And
basically implying no, he won't unless he wins.
And it's really easy. I desperately wanted them to ask Joe Biden the same question. Same question for you, President Biden. Will you accept the results of this election? Because you know what Biden would have said? Yes. Because that's all you have to say.
Yeah.
You don't have to say, well, if it's a free and fair election, because there are free and fair elections. It is, the 2020 election wasn't stolen. There was no evidence in support of it. Every court that it was brought to shot it all down. It's ridiculous. But yeah, you can't answer yes, because then that blows your narrative that the system is rigged against you. And so he had to do that. And I watched Marjorie Taylor Greene avoid the same question when she was being interviewed on, I think it was on Australia TV as well. It's absolutely the easiest question. Unless you are gaming the system or spreading misinformation about the system. If somebody says to you, hey, do you think it's reasonable to ask someone how they would like to be referenced and spoken about? Hey, Randy, do you think it's good to ask people, what's your name? Oh, your name's Randy. If I type that in chat, should I spell it with a Y or an I? Or is there another way to spell it? Okay. Why are those two questions? Do you have a nickname that you'd prefer rather than that name? Why are those three questions okay, but what pronouns do you prefer is somehow not okay? I don't understand. I do understand. That's not true. I do understand. And it's because Randy is dishonest.
Yeah.
Randy knows that if he answers the questions that we ask, his bigotry and ignorance and incorrectness will be exposed.
Yep.
You cannot toe the party line. You think a man can get pregnant? Yes, I think a trans man can absolutely get pregnant. And by the way, there are, it's not outside the realm of possibility that there's an anomalous individual who could get pregnant, who is a man that you would not think of as a cis man, and I would not think of as a trans man, because the world is more complicated than that. But if you want to say, generally, can men get pregnant? Nope. Generally, normatively, no, because the normative is cis men who lack the equipment. But it's so funny that somebody calls in and is like, well, I was going to talk about, how I'm a gunshot survivor and miracles demonstrate that there's a God. But you guys asked me about my pronouns, and that means you probably think men can get pregnant and that vaccine mandates are okay. I mean, is there anything? What was next? You guys probably think that men can get pregnant, vaccine mandates are okay, that aliens haven't been visiting the Earth, that the Earth is an oblate spheroid, and probably accept that evolution by means of natural selection is the current best scientific explanation for the diversity of life on our planet. Why, yes, I
Nailed
do.
me to the wall.
Oh, you're telling on yourselves.
Tim sent
You're
a very
telling on
generous
yourselves.
$100 and said, Matt and Jimmy, you both demand. I'm thrilled to donate $100 after witnessing Randy get her snowflake ovaries crushed in real time and recorded for history, I thank thee. It's
thank you very much.
Example of it probably doesn't work to switch them out, but whatever. But anyway, Master Machetier says, I've been faced with the argument that science is based on faith. I'm having a hard time articulating an argument against this fallacy. Well, the fallacy they're committing is the equivocation fallacy, because when they are using the term faith, they are mixing in a colloquialism of faith that has been widely adopted. That's why it's colloquialism, which stands for confidence. However, when we are speaking of faith in a religious context, it is a vastly different thing, which has to do with spiritual apprehension, not confidence, not a simple confidence. And it certainly isn't something that happens without evidence. They are actually quite the polar opposite. One's confidence, or what you would call faith in science, as a colloquialism versus religious faith. And if the person you are talking to is a Christian, ask them to open up, I think it's Hebrews 11:1, and read that to you, and ask how science in any way resembles that definition.
And Tim, who just donated $100, decided to type something significant in, but he did it in all caps. So of course it got nuked. So let me just address this real quick. First of all, huge thank you to all of our moderators. These are people who volunteer, and they don't make the rules. And any of you who decide to take a shot at our moderators, you will lose every time, and you will find yourself able to watch the show but never comment. Just don't go after the moderators. We won't tolerate it. Nobody gets to do that. That said, we don't put a ton of rules on there. Like if you want to talk shit about me or whatever else, it's probably going to get shot down as a distraction from the show, and you're going to get recommended that you should call in. And we can try to have a conversation that way, but having a separate conversation or debate in chat is just never going to happen. There are reasons why we don't want people to type in all caps, even though on occasion it may make sense, and we have permitted it. We've straight up said, okay, for this, everybody can type in all caps for a little while. So don't get mad at the mods.
We're ending at 5:00 on the dot. You guys can all caps and emoji as much as you want for the rest of the show. There you go. This is your permission. See how quick that turns around. 2,700 people watching us just fuck around at this point. We appreciate you people very, very much, though.
There's tons of people watching, and we've just given, although it's going to take 30 seconds before, or 20 seconds or whatever it is before that they get the note that they can start typing in all caps. So our apologies to the moderators. Feel free to ignore it. It's going to be way too much for anybody to keep up with, but it's wild. So Jimmy, what do we got coming up this week on the line? Because this is not only not the only show, this isn't even the only show today.
Yeah, that's true. Tonight, do not miss the Sunday show, After Dark, which is going to be with two wonderful people. And I'm not just saying all this preamble because I haven't actually pulled up which two yet. That would be an absurd thing to suggest, and I completely resent anyone who would, because I know off the top of my head that it's Adair and Aron Ra tonight, and then they are doing a follow-up. So tonight will be more about theism, God, why do you believe in God? And then tomorrow there'll be the duo of the physicist and the biologist covering all kinds of scientific stuff on Skeptalk. They'll be back to that tomorrow for that. 2 in a row they're doing. And then Eve Was Framed and Alyssa will be back on Tuesday for the next episode of, and I think I actually know the rest, I think. Tuesday for another episode of Chewed Gum. And then on Wednesday, Matt is being joined by Owen Morgan, Telltale. And on Thursday, I have to go find this in a different place. Arden, really? Why is there not a thumbnail? I'm going to give her shit. She's been covering
I was loading Discord to get the list. And of course, Discord's running 15 freaking updates because I don't ever use Discord. So anybody who's like, oh, are you going to be in Discord and blah, blah, blah. I had no idea that it was going to be me and Owen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then this Thursday, Arden and Josie. In fairness, I'm pretty sure Arden and I put that together yesterday, and I don't even know if it's been added to the calendar either. But
she probably didn't tell me because I've been sick. Yeah. And yesterday was focusing on stuff. But I'm always excited when Owen's going to be on. It's a in the entire history of the movement, Owen's probably the one person who there could have been serious potential conflict with based on fucking people tossing rumors around left and right. And then we had a conversation and everything's fine. I love doing the show with Owen. So I can't wait for Wednesday.
Owen's excellent because Owen is actually a skeptic in all elements of life and not just where, not just for atheism and things like that. When he hears claims of that people are making, he actually wants evidence of those claims. And yeah, I value his universal skepticism too. And I hope that I reflect his universal skepticism. That's it for us. Go watch Aron Ra read The Pearl of Great Price, which is the sort of the fake Old Testament, Mormon Old Testament, where Joseph Smith got new books of Abraham and Moses and shit. I am probably going to be there, but I do need a few minutes to reset. Thank you all. And I should have said that all while this was running, because now we awkwardly have to wait for it to finish, even though I have nothing else to say. Do you have anything else to say? Patreon.com/calltheline, I guess I should say.
Patreon.com/ it's go to QANAline.com, go to linemerch.com, patreon.com/calltheline, patreon.com/atheist debates. But you can watch Jimmy hang out with Aron and stuff with Joseph Smith, not the commenter in chat who was afraid to come talk to me, but the one who was dumb.